Jocko ends up walking up to me and I'm like, hey, I was on LAPD's most wanted list. They had called the ghetto bird. And the next thing you know, I'm in the street in just my boxers, no shoes, no nothing. Like I knew my clock was ticking, man.
It was not very long ago. You still got to go to prison.
No, it gets better, man. So never saw my parents argue or fight or anything like that. It was Christmas Eve. I was 7 and like sitting there jumping on the bed, having a good time in my room. And parents come knock on the door. They come in and tell me to sit down and tell me that they're getting a divorce. That was initially when I first started getting in trouble. I think I just kind of used it as an excuse. They're like, oh, it's okay. You know, he's going through a divorce. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, okay. That's like my past right there. And actually shortly after that, it was a private school there on San Vicente Boulevard in Santa Monica. I think it was called Carl Thorpe School. And there was a few celebrity kids that were going there at the time. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's kids were going there. And it was during class, and I was in the bathroom, and I was with a girl in the bathroom. And the assistant principal came into the bathroom, and since the kid was a celebrity's kid, I'm not going to mention who she was, but they were like, oh, okay, you know, you go back to your class. And I'm like, okay. And then she tells me, she's like, hey, you little shit. She's like, she's like, get out of here. And, you know, you're going up to my office. And so I'm like, man, this old lady just cussed me out, man. And so I walk out of the bathroom and there's a basketball that was like off by some drain. And I'm like, so I walk over, I pick up this basketball and I just like beeline it at the assistant principal. She's like one of those typical old ladies with like the long gray, like bell haircut, short, whatever.
Right.
And so I beeline this basketball at this old lady's head and it just like ricochets off her head. And so I was asked to leave that school that year. So that was the first time I got kicked out of a school. I think
they frown on you assaulting the staff in middle school.
Yeah, I guess a protest wasn't going on or something like that. But so that was the first school I got kicked out of. It was a private school, Carl Thorpe. Went to another private school after that. And same thing happened again. They actually asked my brother not to come back to that same school as well. He had some things going on. He got in trouble in class and stuff like that. So they just took the two of us and were like, okay, you know, you guys can't come back next year. So we went to the next private school.
Well, where's your dad?
He's
around, right?
He was around. He would be. He would take us to. Initially, when they first separated, he wasn't around too much. But after like a year or so, he would start taking us to school a few days a week. He would still take us to the park to throw baseball for practice for baseball. He would always still show up at all of my games. Initially, within the first, like I mentioned, year or so, I wasn't around too much. So I think this is kind of when I first started getting into trouble and there wasn't really a lack of discipline taking place, really just kind of got me going on the wrong path. Next private school, went there. There was a couple of times where these kids were picking on my brother, so we beat up some kids. I remember then being in a math class, and I got a math tutor because I was a little behind in math. And so I'm doing pretty good, and they gave us a little test. It was like a speed test. Whoever can finish first, you know, wins. And so I remember completing the test quickly. I was one of the first few people done. Take the test up to the teacher, and her name was Miss Wadsworth, man. And take the test up to her. She goes through it, and since I'd already had a little bit of a reputation, was like, "Oh, this isn't you cheated or something like that."
Right.
And I got pissed off, man. I was like, you know, I've been putting in my work and doing better, and so I ended up cussing the teacher out. I think I called her a fucking bitch or something like that, and so was kicked out of that school as well. They had a red chair. It was at Calvary Christensen School. It was at the bottom of the Highlands in the Palisades. And they had this wooden red chair that I'd have to sit in. I'd be sitting in that thing like all the time. But so I got kicked out of that school as well. And then that was the end of the private schools. After that, I ended up going to the first public school.
You've gone through all the private schools.
Went through, burned through those pretty quickly. Next up on the list was Marquez Elementary. That was 5th grade. And it was a public school. I do recall my father being there at like orientation day. And, but sure enough, I was actually in the Boy Scouts. And so there were some kids in my troop that actually went to this elementary school. And so these were actually the kids that I like first started smoking weed with. So I was like 10 years old, and we were at Marquez. I remember some of us having like cigarettes, and then one of my buddies had brought some little black cat fireworks to school. And so I remember one day we're lighting these little fireworks and throwing them at some kids. Ended up almost getting kicked out of school for that. They actually let me stay for the remainder of that year. But it was at that point in time I was hanging out with my friends, the guys I wanted to be cool with, and just started drinking, smoking trees, and smoking cigarettes was pretty much what it started with. I was like 10 years old. Basically, it all started, they all had like older siblings. That's where it all stemmed from. We got all our stuff from them. And in the Palisades, it was a pretty affluential town. A lot of kids had money there. So the older siblings that were about like 16, 17, 18 years old, a few of these kids started overdosing on black. And, this was like fentanyl. Okay. I don't know what else you use for that.
I think we use, what did we say? Finny?
Yeah, excuse me. So the older siblings back in the day, they were using black. And so some of these kids were overdosing on black. This was all pre-Fenny days. So I'd stayed away from the black and I stayed away from the crystal. I just knew that there was just a lot of bad stuff happening with that. So, but I'd blown through everything else pretty quickly. By the time I was 13, it had gone through like all pharmaceuticals, had gone through stuff where you see a bunch of colors, hallucinogens. I don't know.
Was it like acid or? Yeah,
I'd gone through, a bunch of acid, mushrooms, stuff like that. So burned through all that. It was pretty heavy though. Guys, girls that I would be dating, they had like older brothers that were selling a bunch of stuff. And so I was able to get a bunch of things from them. And so started selling drugs at a pretty early age, about like 13.
And this is what, just to pay for drugs or just to be cool? Or?
Just to be cool, to supply my own habit and, just be a cool guy. That's all taking place. Still playing sports though. I was still kind of like a functioning addict at an early age, which wasn't necessarily a good thing, I guess. Did well in sports, baseball. I made like city all-star team. Started playing football. Things were going okay. I started skateboarding. I was big into skateboarding, but so it was just me, my brother, and my mom for quite a few years, getting into like about 13. Then she started dating a few guys. Guy that turns out to be her husband today. I remember when they first started dating, he was a professor at UCLA, and he would come over. He would take us to some UCLA sporting events, some basketball games, stuff like that. But initially, when they first started dating, I really didn't like this guy for whatever reason it was. Say if my father would come by, and he'd be at the house, and if he was coming over, he'd like wait down the street. He wouldn't have the balls to come and meet and be like, hey, introduce himself or anything like that. He would always just stay a couple blocks away. So I don't know. I didn't really have any respect for that. I felt like, as a man, like it's known that you guys are dating. Like, why don't you come up and meet this dude,
Right.
So I was initially standoffish of him and of course anybody else she dated. There was this one occasion when he came over to the house. It was in the evening time. They went out, they went through the house and went to the backyard, and the backyard of the house had a big, like a hillside behind it. And on the hillside, there was like a wooden jacuzzi and there was like a gazebo, stuff like that. And so they went walking through the backyard. They went up, they were up by the jacuzzi, and me and my brother had our like pellet rifle guns. And so I remember I got my brother and we got our rifles and we went out on the grass towards the house and got down in the prone position and ended up letting one off and hitting this dude upside his head. And so the best part yet is so dude, he drill him in his head and he falls over backwards into this you remember those old wooden jacuzzis?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was one of those. And so he goes it was out of, it was above the porch. So he goes up and over and head over heels, into the jacuzzi. And after this, I come to find out the dude doesn't know how to swim, but he was in the Navy Reserves. So I'm like, how does that work?
Yeah.
Bro? How are you in the Navy? You don't know how to swim. anyways, he's in the jacuzzi, like fighting for his life, and in a 4-foot deep jacuzzi, and my mom has to like reach in and like help get him out of the jacuzzi, and he ends up. They come out, and he literally has to do like the walk of shame, like down the walkway back into the house, and me and my brother are just like on the ground rolling around laughing at this dude.
I mean, he realizes you guys shot him, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if it came from nowhere, like I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it was the dude on the grassy knoll, man.
Right.
So just typical stuff like that, being kids.
But you're saying he stuck around, like he stuck around, and he's married to your mom now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They ended up. Yeah. There's a lot of history with that. I guess like apparently. So my mom, she moved out from the South. She was a real Southern belle. 21, she moved. Might have been 20. She moved from Louisiana to California, and so in Los Angeles back then, her and some of her girlfriends. Back then, you know, it was a little more classy. Things were a little different. They used to go to the Playboy Mansion.
Right.
And so back then it was a little bit classier. You know, she would go on like a movie night or a dinner night, stuff like that. So, interesting enough, like when she was going there, her and my dad were dating, but right around that time, Hugh Hefner had actually asked my mom to be the 25th anniversary centerfold. And she's, I guess, so she's thought about it. And she told him no. she was like, oh, well, I plan to have kids pretty soon, and like I don't want my kids to be seeing that or anything like that.
Right.
So I was like, you know what, Mom, that's pretty gangster.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know how many times that dude's heard no in his life? Like, I don't think very many, you know. So that was pretty sweet. Shout out to Mom. So right around that time, my mom and my dad were dating. So they were dating. They got together for a while, and so she was working at an orthodontist office, and it was this orthodontist birthday, and they had her jump out of a birthday cake for him. So she jumped out, and I guess that's when that was the first time my mom's husband had seen my mom, her future husband. His name's Spiro. I'll go ahead and name drop him. So that was the first time Spiro had seen my mom. And so she got out of the cake, whatever. And my dad and my mom were dancing. And I guess Spiro had the audacity to come up and ask my mom for a dance. And which was like, my dad was a badass dude, man, or still is a badass dude. So back then in the day, he was big in Kempo karate. Ed Parker, who brought Kempo karate to the United States, was like, that's when like Elvis was getting into like karate. Mm-hmm. And so Elvis was teamed up with Ed Parker. My dad actually sparred with Elvis a bunch of times. There's pictures with my dad and Elvis. They were pretty close. And so my dad he had fought like state championships, won state championships. And, he's a Sicilian guy. So, it's like, so this Spiro comes up and asks my dad if he can, or doesn't even ask. Yeah, I think he asked my dad to dance with my mom. And so I think my dad, like, I don't know exactly what happened, but something happened, and he kind of talked some shit to Spiro, and like kind of punked him in front of all this room full of people. And so I guess it kind of, worked on his ego a little bit. So I guess that, there's more to come on that. But that was initially when they first saw each other. And so fast forward back to when we were kids, they started dating a little bit, and everything seemed to be going okay. Like I mentioned, he was taking us to some UCLA basketball games. He was in sports medicine. He used to make the mouth guards for a lot of the sports teams. So initially, after I shot him, he stuck around, so he got a little bit of respect. And he started taking us to those sporting events. He actually did take us to Kansas City. He was making the mouth guards for the Kansas City Chiefs back then. So took us to Kansas City, went to Arrowhead Stadium. We're in the locker room, met Joe Montana, a bunch of guys. It was around that era when that was going on, which was pretty cool at times, and I appreciated that. So at this point, it was like, okay, you're kind of getting a pass, dude. Like, you're all right. Right around that time, actually, is when he asked my mother to marry him. And my mother asked me, she's like, what's up? What do you think? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know if this is the right question to ask today, but I asked her, I was like, hey, well, does he make you happy? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And I asked her, I was like, is this something you want to do? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay, then I support it. Let's do it.
How old were you?
I think I was I think at that point in time, I was only 13. So this had happened, at that point I was 13 because the next events that come up, I know I was 14. So I was 13 at this time. So gave her the green light and was like, okay, what's up? So when are you getting married? What's going on? She's like, okay, well, I think we're going to go to Greece and get married. I was like, okay, cool, man. We're going to Greece. What's up? And she was like, well, I guess apparently we're just going.
Right.
You and your brother Angelo are going to stay here. That's kind of a red flag, man. Like, so that was the first red flag I should have really picked up on.
What? So they got married there, or they got married here, and that was their honeymoon?
They got married there.
Oh, okay.
Got married there. So no family came. My mother's parents wanted to go. They didn't go or weren't allowed to go. So it was just them two, which was really kind of odd. You know what I mean? It's kind of disrespectful for you to not have the bride's parents come if they want to come, stuff like that. So the whole thing just didn't really seem right in my opinion. They got married, and at that point in time, he was getting ready to retire. And so he was going to go from Los Angeles down to Coronado. And so I tried to go into Coronado for a couple of weeks, and it just was not really the right area for me. It's kind of a retirement community. Back then it was a lot more strict. Like I was a kid on a skateboard, and that was like really not welcomed anywhere. I'd get in trouble everywhere I was skateboarding, and just wasn't the right place for me. I was like, these people are freaking stuck up. It's a bunch of rich people. I don't like it. So I'd asked if I could move in with my dad and stay in Los Angeles. So I didn't know all this, but apparently they went to court and a whole bunch of other things. And it was said that I could stay with my dad because my brother was going to go with my mom, whatever that was about. So I moved in with my dad, and things just progressively continued to get more and more out of hand. At that point in time, I was hanging out with friends. I'd take off on the weekend. I'd be gone all weekend, and it would just be like a huge party fest. Wasn't getting into much trouble. Was starting to party pretty hard, though. This was like 14. By the time I was 17, those 2 years, I was still going to school. Within those 2 years, actually, I'd mentioned I was in the Boy Scouts. So I think around like 15 or something like that is when I graduated. I got my Eagle Scout, which is actually a pretty rare feat. It's not a lot of percentage of guys actually get their Eagle Scout with all the certifications and stuff that I got. If I had actually gone into service, gone in the military or any other like first responder organization, you're automatically promoted a few ranks just due to all the certs that you have, like life-saving, all sorts of stuff. So I got my Eagle Scout. Again, was still with a group of buddies that I used to just get in a lot of trouble with. Right around that time, we were doing silly stuff. It's not the typical Boy Scouts. Like we're in there, we're always smoking trees. We went on a trip to Hawaii. We were in Maui. We'd go cliff diving, and we'd get some fungi from some of the local people there. So we're taking a bunch of fungi and like going cliff jumping, all sorts of stuff. We would go to Catalina Island there. Catalina Island, since it was a wealthier troop that I was with with the Boy Scouts in the Pacific Palisades, our troop actually had access to a bunch of like ski boats. And so, which was a rare thing. So when we go to Catalina Island, we'd have ski boats. We were like, ski bobbing, all that stuff. And I remember one of the times it was on the side of like Twin Falls, and Twin Falls is like one of the main harbors for Catalina Island. And so not only were there like Boy Scout camps, but there was a bunch of like Girl Scout camps, stuff like that. So we would go to Twin Harbors during the day, and I remember us meeting a bunch of girls there, but we were with one of the scout leaders there, so we just kind of like played it on the quiet side, and so we ended up going back to camp. Me and a bunch of my buddies were talking. We'd always sneak off, go smoke some trees, and we were like, hey, like let's go. A couple of the scout leaders, these dudes they would snore super loud, like they were knocked out at night. So we were like, hey, we can probably go creep on some of these boat keys and go take one of the boats out at night and go meet these chicks. So that of course happened. Got some of the boat keys, took the ski boat out. We're smoking and drinking on the speedboat, and went and met some girls at the Girl Scout camp. typical stuff as kids. I don't know, but good times, man. Had a lot of good times. Graduated the Boy Scouts. Though at this point in time, then I'm starting to get into like later years in high school. Then in the later years in high school, things were starting to get pretty like active in LA. They had already had the riots back then in '92, but so this is like '96, '97. I was at Palisades High School, and I remember the first kind of thing that was kind of hectic was I wasn't at school. I was ditching school at that point in time. We're off smoking, whatever. And there was a few gangs at my high school. It was a integrated high school, so like 80% of the kids were bussed in from inner city Los Angeles, so from all over, from Compton, Inglewood, all over. So there was like I mentioned, a few gangs at our high school. There was this one kid that went to our school. He was from some notorious Crip gang, and there were some Bloods at my school. They were I think they were from Bounty Hunters, and they had gotten into it. And so one day at school, like I mentioned, I was gone. These guys pulled up in a car and pulled a drive-by at the front of my school, and hit the one Crip kid. Hit him one time. Our football coach got shot in the leg, and they ended up speeding off, got in a high-speed pursuit. It was all over the news, and they ended up catching the guys. But that was kind of like the first kind of incident with any kind of gang stuff that was going on. Around that same point in time, though, I was hanging out. One of my buddies that I grew up with from the time I was in 6th grade stayed, close to like mid-city area, which is like not far from the Rampart District. Back Rampart District. Okay. The movie Training Day.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's like about the Rampart District.
Okay.
There were some notorious cops that were corrupt cops that were in the Rampart District. They were stealing a bunch of drugs from the evidence room, selling it. They were like a straight gang.
Right.
Like back then, within, whether it was in corrections, there were like gangs between deputies. It was just like that in the police division. And so the cops that were in the neighborhood, in my buddy's neighborhood that I was growing up with, were like another gang. Literally, like if you pulled up, we're at the stoplight and we pulled up and they pulled up and you just like looked over to look at them, to be like, what the fuck you looking at? And like,
right.
just, yeah. And they'd pull you out the car, do all sorts of wild shit. So some of my buddies from that neighborhood, since he was my best friend that I grew up with, I was hanging out with him and hanging out in that neighborhood quite a bit for the previous few years. And so a lot of our buddies, we were all just from like a crew back then. Back then it was like tagging crews. We were going and tagging all over the city. We'd actually gotten to be pretty big. We were from like downtown LA all the way to the beach. We were up everywhere, like all over the place, and which was kind of uncommon at that point in time. We'd gotten pretty big. And so things were divided back then. Like gangs wouldn't interact with crews just because it was kind of like too different. It was like the major leagues versus the minor leagues. But I guess we had gotten so big that a lot of gangs started to beef with us. And so we were getting into it with all sorts of gangs. We were like younger teenagers. These guys were a little bit older. And there was one incident. We're at the Santa Monica Pier and ran into some guys, seen some guys that were from this gang, and they ran up while we were in our car. We're actually literally on the Santa Monica Pier, and it's middle of the daytime. There's people everywhere. And so these guys come up and start trying to like, punch the car and stuff like that. So my buddy that's driving just literally like runs over these two guys in front of us and then like throws it in reverse and backs up over these guys. And went like back and forth over these dudes a few times. And
you're in the car?
Yeah.
How did they fare?
I don't know. We didn't I mean, it was madness. People were everywhere like, oh my God, what's going on? And so we ended up just getting out of there. But things started to progress. Like that was an entry thing. We're going to house parties. I was at a house party in Venice, and I had a few of my buddies from the neighborhood come over to the house party. And sure enough, some guys from one of the local gangs showed up, and we're in the backyard. And so we weren't, nobody had any weapons really or anything. We were still kind of young. And so these guys show up, but then so it was just like literally like a beer bottle breaking contest and like vodka bottle breaking contest over each other's heads, and guys jumping through. Some guy jumped through like the living room window of this house. It was a girl that was a friend of mine. It was her mom's house. And so like that big window's broke. There's blood all over the whole backyard. They trampled the back fence down. That's actually where I got hit on the side of my head right here. It split my face open. And these were like regular occurrences. These were happening all the time.
This is all related to the public school you were going to.
I would
right?
say so. I started going to public schools. Yeah. And so, Palisades High School is a public school as well. Things just started progressing. At that point in time, we're getting into our later teenage years. I was about 17. My father ends up telling me at that point in time, they were making me go to therapy and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they were like, okay, if you don't straighten out, you're going to be kicked out of here on your birthday. And so it was about like 6 months to my birthday. And I just knew, I was like, you know what, this isn't going anywhere. I don't see this happening. So I had an opportunity to move out of the house.
Where?
A girlfriend that I was dating, she lived in Topanga Canyon. Topanga Canyon is like home of like the hippie kids. Like all the hippies from LA moved up out of the city into Topanga Canyon. And so all those kids are about my age. All the adults were like ex-hippies and stuff like that.
Right.
So it was a big like drug neighborhood. It's up in the mountains. It's close to Malibu. It's like up in the hills. And
it's like the movie Valley. Was it Valley Girl? You didn't ever see this movie. You remember the movie Valley Girl? You don't remember Valley Girl?
No.
Nicolas Cage was in it. It was like his first movie. Valley Girl. And her parents were hippies.
Okay.
And they lived in the valley, wherever the valley is. I don't know where the valley is.
Yeah, it's funny. The valley is just on the other side. So Topanga Canyon separates from the coast to the valley.
See?
Yeah. No, yeah,
I know a little bit.
But it was crazy in Topanga. Everybody's doing a bunch of drugs, all sorts of stuff. Parents were okay with it. They were doing back then in like Fox News, they had this like Fox Undercover thing. I don't know if you remember, like, I guess it was, they would do, so we're at a bunch of these parties, and me and a bunch of my buddies, we're selling drugs, and, we would bring tanks, nitrous tanks, and you say that, or whatever. Yeah, we'd bring those tanks. We'd be selling balloons to kids and all that. And so I remember there's this one kid with a video camera. We didn't recognize him, and so like I didn't like it. First off, I'm like, I don't like this guy. But over the next few weekends, we keep seeing this guy. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's all right. It's not a big deal.
But he's got a video camera.
Yeah, he's got a video camera, which didn't happen very often back then. And so then like a couple months later, they were doing these like Fox Undercover things on the news every once in a while. They'd come out where there was some undercover thing that was going on. And so I remember I'm sitting there watching TV, and this Fox Undercover thing comes on. And it's like kids in an upscale neighborhood when parents are out of town, and it starts showing shows like me, shows a bunch of my buddies. It shows us like selling MDMA or whatever you want to call that, it's pills and stuff.
Right.
And selling balloons and all sorts of stuff. It like blurs out some of our faces. It doesn't blur out other people's faces.
How old were you?
I was maybe like 15, 16, something like that. And there's one kid who was a friend of mine. He lived in the Palisades, and he's like sitting there, and I think they blur out his face, but so the kid is actually watching this with his grandparents. He lives at his grandparents' house, and this comes on, and they're like, that kind of looks like you. And he's like, that's not me. That's not me. And then all of a sudden their phone starts ringing off the hook. He like picks it up. They're like, dude, you're on the news. Dude, you're on the news. So his cover got blown. But yeah, so it was just all sorts of madness was happening. At that point in time, we're getting a little bit older. And so it was like, kids graduated, like my buddies that were in the inner city, like by that Rampart district, graduated, started going from being in like a crew, a little tagging crew, to then being from a gang. And gangs in that neighborhood were some pretty big time gangs. Like they're gangs that are still known, like they're all over the country and stuff like that. So a few of my buddies started getting from the neighborhood, and then at that point in time, like they're putting in work. Guys are catching bodies. Guys are disappearing. Guys
These
are.
are upper middle class kids that are now.
Oh no 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 no
Oh,
no
okay.
no
This
no
is
yeah
no.
this was me by myself. Like one of my the buddy that I was my best friend from sixth grade. He lived in like mid city. He lived in the neighborhood, so I
Okay.
would hang out with him, and I'd be like one of the only white guys in
Right.
the neighborhood. It was predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood, and so a
But
bunch
these
of
are guys that you know in that group that are now joining gangs
Right.
that are now, putting in work.
right,
Okay.
yeah, they were the guys that I was in this crew with, our little tagging crew. It was a bunch of Hispanic kids, and
Graduated to serious
to
crimes.
the big leagues. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, it started getting real. Guys were getting locked up for 25 years. Had one buddy who really just kind of got pretty crazy with it. He used to like to smoke embalming fluid,
Mm-hmm.
and he would like to go shoot people. Like that's what he liked to do. And so he'd be like, "Hey, let's do this." And be like, "No, man, like let's go hang out with some girls, man."
Right.
And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. Like let's go do this." It's like, "Nah, I'm good, man." And so it started getting crazy. I mean, he was shooting so many people around the neighborhood that a lot of the blacks that were in that neighborhood started moving out of the neighborhood. It was getting that bad. It was going around to different parts of the city, shooting guys. I mean, everything was special circumstances. Like a lot of these, they were like overkill. Like when murders are special circumstances, it's because they can be overkill, stuff like that. And so a lot of these bodies were having like 20 bullets in the body, like 8 bullets in the head.
And these aren't people these are just people he randomly is coming across, or
No,
some of
he'd
them are.
go to like, they'd be at parties, and there'd be other neighborhood gang members from rival neighborhoods.
Right.
Yeah. So they're gang members shooting other gang members.
Okay.
Yeah. Not random people. And he was getting pretty wild. I mean, this buddy of mine, he ended up being wanted for like over 35 homicides. Ended up getting caught. It was all over the news. They called him like a hunter of human beings. Yeah, it was pretty. It was pretty.
And how old are you?
At that point in time, about like 18.
Okay.
Getting close. I was about almost 20, right around that time. That was before he ended up getting in trouble. But while all this stuff was taking place, I was like, man, this is nuts, man. Like, I got to get out of here. And so the girlfriend that I was dating, she wanted to move to Arizona, and I was like, that sounds like a great idea. So decided to go to Arizona, to Tucson, just to kind of get away and try and go to. I graduated high school. I got my diploma.
Right.
But I wanted to go there, try and go to college. So moved out to Tucson, and at that point, brought a bunch of trees with me. So I went out there. We had a few buddies that were from Los Angeles that had moved out there, and so we had a few guys set up there. But I went there. I was still selling trees, trying to go to school. Wasn't really going to school. Was working, and it was just a vicious cycle. Then fell into the same thing. It's just like I just did the geographical change. I didn't change any of my bad habits. So I was there selling drugs, partying, spinning my wheels. About a year or two goes by, and my girlfriend then at that point in time was like, you know what, I'm going to move back to California. She's like, I'm over it here. And I was like, okay, well, I guess you're not inviting me, so I guess I'm staying. So stayed. Right around that time is actually had bought a car from a buddy of mine, and his dad owned a car lot. And so just bought the car off of him, didn't have insurance on the car. So I'm driving the car just to and from work. I've had the car, and I'm not taking it out on the weekends. I'm like, I don't want to, jeopardize it. So about like 3 weeks into it, I'm like, there's a big like party at some college apartment housing complex. So I'm like, we're going, man. So I get a few of my buddies, brought my dog. I had just gotten a pit bull that was, he was already a little bit older. He was like part of a rescue place. So I got him, go up to this house party, and right around that time, I was heavily influenced by music, and it was a thing in music these days about like, I can drink a whole Hennessy fifth. I think it was an Exhibit song. And So I'm like, okay, I'm going to drink a whole fifth of Hennessy. And so go to this house party, drink a whole fifth of Hennessy, didn't let anybody else touch it, drank the whole thing. And I remember I had my dog with me, and the guy that had the party was like giving me shit about my dog because he had like this little lap dog and didn't like the fact my dog was by my side the entire time. I'm like, this fucking guy, whatever. So we're like going to his apartment, I like open up his freezer, I take some of his alcohol, I like drink some of his alcohol, I throw it back in the freezer, slam the door. And at that point in time, I'm like, all right, man, let's get out of here, let's leave. So later on, I ended up finding out that one of my buddies that took my keys from me. Didn't know it, but apparently I had my keys at that point in time. I'm like, all right, so let's leave. So I get all my buddies, we get in the car, and we're pulling off. And a couple days prior, I'd gotten a flat tire. So there was a spare tire on one of the, I think it was a back wheel. And I remember we get in the car and I started playing, that's when that song, Move, Bitch, Get Out the Way. It's that old Ludacris song had just come out. So remember, I just put some like speakers in the car. I had hooked up the sound system. And so we get in the car, I'm like bumping this song. And so, of course, I started speeding, right? And we get out of this college complex, and then there's the community college across the street. So there's like a long straightaway with 2 green lights. And so we start going, and I remember I catch the first green light. And so by this time I'm getting up there in speed. So now I'm doing like, I'm doing like 110, 120 in a little Toyota Corolla, with a spare tire on the back. And I remember I'm in there, and my buddies started like, they're talking to me from the back seat. And I'm like, and literally, just as I say, like, I turn around to say, like, shut the fuck up, man, I'm driving. Just as I say that, I drift like about a foot to the left, and I end up hitting a pedestrian curb island, like a little, curb island. And boom, whole floorboard comes up even with the center console. We spin. I think we took out a pole. Some of us like get out of the car. My one buddy gets out the car, runs and goes stashes like a couple ounces of powder. Like I get out of the car and I stand up and I literally like collapse. I was like, man, what the fuck? Like I've broken my ankles numerous times. I used to skateboard for years. And so like, I know how to I felt a broken ankle before. So I tried to stand up again. I like knew my left foot was pretty bad, but my right foot, I literally couldn't put any weight on it. Like something was really wrong with it. Regardless, I tell everybody like, hey, get the fuck back in the car, man. I'm gonna start the car. And so they go and they get in the car. I remember trying to start the car. Of course, it's dead. Nothing works. I remember seeing the car like a few weeks later. I was like, I can't believe I told people to get back in the car. The thing was fucking wrecked. And so in the car, trying to start it, doesn't start. Next thing you know, cops pull up. And I guess I was so pissed off about the car. I was like, man, I just bought this car. There's no fucking insurance. I was so pissed. Apparently, they didn't like breathalyze me or anything. They didn't. I know I reeked like alcohol. But sure enough, next thing you know, I'm in the hospital, and turns out I ended up like shattering my right foot. Would later end up needing reconstructive surgery, which still bothers me to this day. I walk with a limp. It's a pain in the ass. Don't get in trouble for the car. Wake up the next day, everything's all messed up. I finally get out of the hospital about a week later. I'm at my house smoking weed on the couch, and I hear a knock on the door. And I hear Anthony, and my neighbor's name was Anthony. So I think it's my neighbor, knocking on my door, right? And so I'm like, yeah, come on in. So they open the door, and it's a couple of sheriffs, and they come walking in. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, all right, well, come on in, man. And so they come walking in, they kind of like start looking around. I got like a 4-footer water pipe, you want to call it or whatever, laid up against the couch. I got like a smaller one on the table, and there's like a big joint burning on the ashtray. And I'm just like... And they're like, yeah. They were like, you were here. You have a dog? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, they were like, we're here to arrest you for animal cruelty. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, we just got your dog. Your dog was brought in. Apparently he was involved in a car accident like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, yeah. I was like, as you can see, I was in the hospital. I was like, I just got out of the hospital. I had the paperwork right there. I was like, I just got out of the hospital.
Was the dog hurt?
So I guess apparently he had his jaw. I don't know. He had something wrong with his jaw. I don't know exactly what it was, but so I had gotten out of the hospital, and didn't know where my dog was. So I'm calling around trying to find my dog. Takes me about a day to find my dog. So he's at one of the kennels in the city. So find out where he's at, and then I have my buddy Paul. My buddy Paul goes and picks up my dog from the kennel place and takes the dog to the vet. This was one day I'm out of the hospital. Picks up the dog, see there's something wrong with his jaw, takes him to the vet. And so we're like, okay, cool. That's where it was like left at. And I guess he was at the vet for a few days, and they didn't know that I was in the hospital. And so they had figured the original car accident date was a couple weeks prior. That's why they called. So I show them all the paperwork, and they're like, okay, we're going to arrest you, but I can see that it was like you're in the hospital, then you find him, but you're still going to have to go to court. Okay. So I end up going to court a few weeks later. I show them the paperwork, and they were like, okay, we'll come back in 3 weeks, we'll settle this. Okay. Go back to court 3 weeks later, and they call the case, and I kind of show them, I'm like, hey, like I'm in the hospital. I'm out a day. I find him the next day, and he's at the vet the next day. Like,
Right.
what's up? Where's my dog at? And dude in the pews behind me, he's like, hey, if they have a pit bull or a Rottweiler longer than like a couple of weeks, they put him to sleep. And so I'm like, what? And so they're like, oh, okay. Then the judge is like, okay, well, we see that this is, see what's going on here. We're just going to leave your case open, boom, and hits the gavel. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, where's my dog at, man? I'm like, I show you I'm in the hospital. Like, there's obviously not animal cruelty. Like, what the fuck's the deal, man? And the prosecution was like a board. It was like a bunch of women that didn't look like they were straight. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of lesbians on the prosecution board.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, are you kidding me? And like, I'm like, so did you guys put my dog to sleep? I'm sitting here in court. I'm sitting here fighting my case. And before I can prove that I'm innocent, you guys are going to put my dog to sleep.
Right.
I was like, how hypocritical is that, man? Like, what's wrong with your guys' system? I start talking shit to the judge, and he starts banging his gavel. He's like, get out of here before I hold you in contempt. I just started letting him have it, man. But my buddy that was there kind of helped remove me from the courtroom.
Where was the dog?
They put the dog to sleep.
So I thought the guy had just said that they this is what they do.
Yeah, they put the dog to sleep before I could even prove that what was going on. Before I could prove my innocence, they had already by then put the dog to sleep. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, I rescued the dog from it. That was my negligence doing what I did, and I'm putting the dog in the situation. Like, I take ownership of that. That's my fault. However, that shows a big kind of hole in the system right there. Arizona's madness, man. Just did the geographical change. I'm there just screwing up. So 2.5 years goes by. I have a friend of mine that's living in Austin, Texas, that I grew up with in the Palisades, and he's like, hey, come out this way. He had gotten big into like the underground music scene, which was real big in Austin back then, or still is. And so I went out to Texas, was in Texas, again with the mission to go to school, but I'm still in my addiction. So it's like I just did the geographical change again. So I end up just working because I'm a functioning addict, and start working for a sales company. It's a fundraising company, and I'm there for a few weeks, and they asked me to get into management. So I got into management. Went from managing a section of the office to a couple of sections in the office, and then I ended up running the entire office. It was like about 125 people.
So it's a fundraising company.
Fundraising company.
For what?
They were actually doing fundraising for police and fire organizations.
Okay.
Yeah. And, it was one of those real kind of shady organizations. I mean, they're actually pretty well known, like the Fraternal Order of Police, like FOP. There's like pretty big organizations that are actually okay with it, but the organization can keep up to they can keep like up to 80%, and in some cases even more than that. Some of these nonprofit 501c3s.
So you're getting $100, and the cops are getting maybe
$20. But obviously the association is okay with it. That's why they have the contract to begin with. But still, in my opinion, that's not a very fair percentage.
Yeah.
These guys, the company I was working for, they were a bunch of dudes from New Brunswick, Jersey, a bunch of Jersey guys,
right?
And the FTC ended up coming after them for like, I don't know how many millions of dollars, but they were doing it big. They were buying up like cul-de-sacs in Jersey. Like these guys were crushing it. They had like 53 offices nationwide. The office I was working for was one of the bottom earning offices. Once I kind of took over and was running the office there within management, I took it to being like one of the top earning offices in the country. It was like between 1 and 3. It was always flipping around. So did that for a few years. Was dating some girl that was a stripper, just living that kind of crazy lifestyle. And they were going to give me an office to open in LA. They were like, hey, we're going to open a few offices in California. We'd like you to go open the Los Angeles office. Okay, cool. Run it, send it. So time gets close to me, going and opening that office. And one of these guys back in Jersey, one of their cousins had gotten in trouble and was like needed to get out of there. So they're like, all right, we're going to give the LA office to this guy. We want you to go up to Modesto to open the office in Modesto. I was like, man, I'm not going to Modesto. Modesto is not a very nice area. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, all right, well, I'd been gone from California for about 6.5 years. I missed my family. My brother had, at that point in time, started a construction company in San Diego. So it was actually doing pretty good. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to San Diego, link up with my brother. I'd been gone, missed him for, so many years and help grow this construction company with him. So moved out to San Diego and, he was partying a little bit. We were doing a bunch of powder and construction company was going good. He was doing some commercial and residential, was building some like beauty salons in San Diego, some upper end, where they do all like the laser treatment and all that kind of stuff, some high end salons. Then was also doing some residential homes in Coronado. So I got out to California to link up with him and things were pretty good. It was really good to spend some time around my brother. Like when we were growing up, we were very, very close. Like we're only 3.5 years apart. He was like my better half. I did all the typical older brother stuff, put him in a shopping cart and like push him down a hill into some fucking shit, like all the cool typical stuff, man. So, but it made a real tough son of a bitch younger brother. This kid was tough, man. Like never saw this kid back down from any situation ever. Like that's rare. Yeah. In any situation. No matter how bad the situation was, he never backed down.
Was your dad still around at this time? Is he also running a construction company or?
No, he had, at that point in time, he actually had started working again. He had gone through, when my parents divorced, it was because in the early 90s, there was a big housing crash. So he had a few houses on the market in the Palisades that the bank ended up taking over. So, there was a lot of financial issues taking place when they got divorced. He had about 60 guys on his construction company. And so he was still carrying all these guys when all this stuff was taking place and it was like dwindling away their savings account. He just didn't want to, let these guys go and stuff like that. My dad was a good dude. And so a lot of the financial issues were a big cause in the separation of my parents. So he had gone through a bunch of other lines of work after that, had retired for a little bit. But then at that point in time, when I came back to California, he was actually in the construction industry. He was a superintendent on a custom spec house in Bel Air. I think the house was like 9,800 square feet. Nice big custom house in Bel Air. So I'm in San Diego with my brother, and actually my father had called and said that they were pissed off at the masonry guys. They had screwed it up, and if we wanted to come up and bid like a sub-slab area in the backyard for the pool equipment and to bid a retaining wall property line. So we're like, yeah, for sure. So we came up there, got that work, and it turned into... we ended up getting the entire backyard. It was about 4,000 square feet of flagstone, a bunch of other hardscape, pool, like mosaic tile. It was probably about $300,000 or $400,000 worth of work. We started then going from house to house. It was investment developing. And so this was about 2007, just about a little before 2008. And we started going from house to house, and each of these houses, the smallest one was the 9,600 square feet. The biggest house we worked on was like 19,000 square feet. And each house we're doing all of the hardscape. We're doing some interior tile work, mostly masonry work. And so we're making a lot of money at that point in time. I mean, we're getting some pretty good paychecks. You know, every 2 weeks we're getting paychecks for like 50,000, stuff like that. And so I'm 26, my brother's 23.
Right.
So, you know, we're buying Breitling watches with the diamond bezel and diamond bracelets and all sorts of silly stuff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say spinning it
Stupid
stupidly.
stuff,
Yeah.
bro. I mean, we were burning money. We were living in LA at the time. So we would come down to San Diego for the weekend. So we would leave like Thursday, come for the weekend. We leave Thursday, come into San Diego. Back then we'd stay like the Hard Rock Hotel. Back then they had like those big pool parties, like the intervention pool parties. It's kind of like they had a rehab in Vegas. There's these big pool parties where kids were partying and all sorts of stuff. So we'd go down to the Hard Rock. We'd get a cabana that was like 20 grand for the weekend. We'd have bottle service, you know, VIP stuff, all that crap. Burning money. So it'd be like Thursday, maybe Friday at the latest, we would go down, do all this stuff, and we'd be partying hard, man. Like me and my brother, between the two of us, we would go through like an ounce of powder, like within a day, a little more than a day. So we're hitting it hard, man. You know, pool parties, all that stuff, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. By Sunday, everybody's gone, but we're still there. And so it would be like Sunday, we're still partying. And then like Monday would come around, we're still kind of partying. I remember we'd go down to the lobby and they'd have like one of the restaurants, I forget what it was called. And so we'd go down there to order some cocktails and we'd see all these people in their suits and everything, right? And I remember this one time, man, my brother's hilarious, dude. He was like, we're sitting there like we're starting to get all paranoid. We've been up for a few days, you know what I mean? We see all these people in suits and we're looking at the drinks and my brother says, I'll order a Mai Tai. It's like, we didn't have a tie. So everybody else was wearing ties. So I'm like, bro, you're a jackass, man.
Just dad jokes.
Yeah. And so, you know, I'm grateful for the memories. You know what I mean? It was dumb stuff that we were doing. I can laugh at it now. You know what I mean? But it was just madness, bro. It was just absolutely crazy. I mean, we're spending so much money. So then we'd maybe make it back up to LA by like Tuesday or Wednesday, all paranoid, like driving, like looking over our shoulders, thinking the cops are following us. You know, like it was not good for work purposes. You know, there would be times where my brother would go off and do things or. You know, he would like to gamble a lot. So he'd be in Vegas. I'd get a call from one of our buddies talking about, hey, I just had to let Angelo borrow 20 grand, man. Like, what's up? And I'm like, it's cool. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. But things were just really wild, pretty crazy. One incident, I was with my brother. It was actually a family affair. We had gone to Lake Havasu, the Colorado River out there, and went out there. Family was out there, but of course we just take all our drugs with us and we'd be partying. So we'd be out on we're out on the river one day. We had Sea-Doos, and I remember in our Sea-Doo, we had like a bottle of Grey Goose. We had a bunch of powder in there. And so we're sitting there, you know, taking G, doing a bunch of blow, drinking alcohol on the Sea-Doos all day. Evening rolls around. They're like, okay, we're going to have a dinner. I'm like, okay. So we go to dinner, try to eat some food because we haven't eaten any food all day. And, don't really eat any food, drink more cocktails. And plan was to be up on the water the next morning. And so I'm like, all right, I'm like, hey, Angelo, man, I'm going to go lay down, man. I need to try and get some kind of rest. He's like, nah, man, let's go hit the tables. And I'm like, nah, dude, let's go lay down. He's like, nah, man, let's hit the tables. I'm like, dude, I'm going to go lay down. Like, if you want to go hit the tables, go ahead. So he goes, he would play blackjack. You know, we would play blackjack. And so he goes and hits the tables. I go upstairs and lay down. Apparently my brother's at the table just like kind of shoveling chips towards the dealer, like barely even conscious, doesn't know what he's doing. And my dad actually comes walking up and sees what's going on and starts talking shit to the dealer like, hey, what the fuck's wrong with you, man? Like, you're actually dealing this kid? So my dad goes to pick my brother up. My brother's a big kid, man. He's like, he wasn't as tall. He was maybe like 5'10". I think he was 5'9". He'd like to say he was 6 foot, but he was 5'9". And, but he was like 250. He was a big kid. So my dad's a big dude. He's about 6 feet tall. And so he like picks my brother up and is trying to walk him back to the elevator. And my brother drops out in the middle of the casino floor and starts like foaming at the mouth. And
what happened? Why?
He's overdosing.
Oh, okay.
Too much G, too much powder, too much alcohol.
Okay.
And so he's laid out on the floor, foaming at the mouth. And my dad actually causes a pretty big scene and actually gets them to call an ambulance pretty quickly. If that hadn't happened, too much time definitely would have gone by. So actually able to call an ambulance. The EMTs get there, get him on there, and I guess they get him breathing. And so next thing you know, I wake up at the bed, and my dad's at the foot of my bed with my brother's girlfriend at the time. And they're like, Angela's in the hospital, man. He just laid out. And so get dressed real quick. We go to the hospital, get out the car, and I'm kind of beelining into the hospital pretty quickly. And my brother's girlfriend's kind of keeping up with me. So I get in there and I find out where he's at. I go up to the room and the doctor's like, hey, they're like, okay, like, so what did he have? What did he consume? And his girlfriend's like, he didn't do anything. He drank a little alcohol. I was like, man, shut the fuck up, bitch. Like, I told him exactly, like, I was like, we've been doing G all day. We've been doing a bunch of powder, a bunch of alcohol. And they're like, okay, cool. So that way they just don't give him enough stuff.
Yeah.
To work. Yeah. And she's
They need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so they can not do or, whatever. So she really kind of, she was all bad, man. I told my brother from day one, his girlfriend, I'm like, dude, she's a tweaker. She's not good. And he was like, no, she's not. It later came out that she was a tweaker. She was all bad. And that whole story continues, as soon as we leave the hospital, I see my brother. So we go down there and my brother kind of wakes up and he's got these tight ass hospital pants on. And back then we used to watch that movie, Nacho Libre a lot. And it was like, and so he's like laid out on the bed and he kind of sits up and he's got a gut on him. So he's got this gut and these tight ass pants on. And so I walk in the room, I'm like, Nacho. So we just start laughing, bro. Like we're always having a good time. We're always just cracking jokes. People would always want to be around us because we're always having a good time, So of course here he is, almost died. And we're sitting here laughing at the thing, So he has to stay for a little while later. What I was getting at is, so we end up leaving, and as soon as we get back to the hotel, man, my brother's girlfriend like runs up to the room, goes in the safe, and takes a bunch of the money out of there to go like burn the money gambling. You know what I mean? So she's just no good. It's the first of not the first, but that's just one of many things that she's just had done. Madness continues, man. From there, at that point in time, things actually, me and my brother started butting heads actually because that girl would cause. She didn't know. I had first gotten in trouble about a year or two prior. First time I got in trouble, I was 26 years old. A girl that I had known from high school, I had ran back into when we moved up to LA because we were doing all the construction work. She was batshit crazy. So I started dating this girl, and she just was a bad alcoholic. She couldn't control her drinking. She ends up attacking me one night, and I end up getting out of the house. The neighbors had called the cops. And so back then it was like, if there's a domestic call, the guy goes to jail. So I go to jail. I have like 8 hematoma bite marks all over my body that they take pictures of. And, but still they're charging me with a case. And I talked to her initially and she was like, I was like, hey, this isn't cool. Like, you attacked me. Like, this isn't right. Like, I didn't even lay a hand on you. Like, I was raised by my mom. Like, I don't get down like that. And she's like, no, I know. I'll make everything. I'll fix it. I'm like, okay, cool. So we end up going to court and she shows up with her mom, and her mom doesn't like me. Her mom knew me from when I was in high school, and she's like, that's a troubled kid. And so she was still being supported by her mom. So evidently her mom had told her, if you don't testify against him, I'm going to cut you off. So she gets on stand, testifies against me, whole bunch of holes in her story. However, I had never been in the system before and didn't really know that, like, hey, I need to take this to the box. I should have taken it to trial. Right. Because it would have been dismissed. But scare tactics, I got caught up on January 20th. So I was in there fighting the case January, February, March, April.
And you're locked up the whole time?
Yeah, I'm locked up the whole time fighting the case.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we had a public defender.
You can't get it. They can't let you out on bond, or is it domestic because it's domestic violence?
No, well, initially we didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I had bail, but we didn't think it would go that long. Like, ended up going to like my prelims, and that's when she like testified against me. And so then it went to the next thing, and it was like, okay, well, this should be kicked out. This is ridiculous. It's not even a case, but it kept going. And so like after 2 or 3 times in court, we went ahead and brought in a private attorney. And then once my private attorney showed up, they started backpedaling a little bit. They were like, okay, you know, I was starting to get some action in the courtroom. And so they had offered me a deal, and my attorney was like, we're not taking that. Nope, we're not doing that. He's like, they still want the felony. We're not doing that. Absolutely not. We'll come back. It was then at that point, it was going to be jury selection. So that would be the last time you'd have a deal before you start trial. And he's like, nope, we're not taking that. We'll come back and get a better deal. I'm like, okay, cool, man. Finally, thought I had something going for me. So that next court date, he ends up getting called into a murder case that he has. And so it's some fill-in, some girl shows up. And I literally remember being at the table, and they're looking at the prosecution, and the prosecution sees her come in, and they take one folder off the desk and put another folder on the desk. And I'm like, that's not good. And so they come to tell us, and it was the same deal they offered. So obviously they had another deal that they were going to give me, but saw that the fill-in was there. And so they put my original deal back on the table, and she didn't know anything about the case. And so it was either take this deal or then take it to trial. And
with her.
Well, he probably would have come back for the trial, but it was like, I didn't want to go to trial, because it was like, if I went to trial, like my max was 4 years. It was from 1 to 4, and I was 26, and I was like, I'd never been in trouble before. I'm like, man, I was like, I could go to prison till I'm 30 years old. And I was like, I didn't even touch this. This is fucking crazy. And so the deal they go, okay, it'll still be a felony. It's 52 weeks anger management class, 3 years probation. If you take this deal today, you could be out today, tomorrow, or maybe in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, so basically, worst case scenario, I'm out of here in 2 weeks. And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll take the deal. And worst mistake I ever made, making myself a felon. Take the deal. That's April 10th, right? And so I go back to housing. A week goes by, 2 weeks go by, nothing. 3 weeks go by, 4 weeks. It's about close to my birthday, the end of May. And I call my attorney. I'm like, dude, what's up, man? It's way over 2 weeks. He's like, dude, I just looked at your release date in the computer. It's August 3rd. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, that's it. He's like, I'm like, dude, no way. They told me in court 2 weeks. And he's like, but that's just what it is. I was like, nah, dude. I was like, I want to pull the minute report. That's not what was stated in court. He's like, it's just what it is. I was like, wow. So ended up staying till August 3rd was my release date. Got released in August. My brother had first started dating that girl before I got in trouble. When I got out, they had been dating for about a year. The night I got arrested was the first night they went on a date. They were there during the whole incident. So I get out, and that's when I finally got to know her a little bit, and I told my brother that she was all bad. Once I got out and she kind of realized how close me and my brother were, she started doing everything she could to put some space between us. So unfortunately, that started happening. Me and my brother started butting heads. And so we kind of went our own ways. I then started working with an HVAC company that was a friend of my dad's. And at this point in time, I'm almost 30. At that point in time, I lost my everything that was going on. So I started hanging out with some guys that were from my neighborhood where I lived. And a few of these guys were smoking crystal. So I decided to smoke crystal at 30 years old, and was the worst mistake I ever made, man.
I was going to say, does anybody ever say best mistake? They're selling crystal. Best mistake, best decision I ever made.
Yeah, it was the best mistake I ever made. Oh, man. You know, I mean, I've been doing stuff, and it was like, oh, wow, this is great. Like, this is, now I'm just good for like a day or two, but so I started smoking crystal, but I'm still going to work, showing up on time, but they know something's up. And so work is like, hey, you need to go to rehab or you don't have a job. And I was like, well, I've never been late. I haven't missed a day at work. I was like, well, I guess I don't have a job. So there went the job. So job went. And then next thing you know, the apartment goes, and then I'm on my own.
What does on my own mean?
I was homeless. Yeah, I was on the street, and quickly moved into. I had a car that had gotten towed just when I started. All this madness started because I hadn't paid a ticket or something, and lost the car. So then I was homeless. So then I started stealing cars to have a car. I ended up getting my hands on this.
How do you steal a car?
you just end up getting a hold of things, man, when you're living that life. Like, so it was, I was with some buddies. One of the first times it was like, I'm with some buddies and their buddy shows up and he shows up in a fucking taxi. And we're like, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, dude, he tells us some way out story that this dude tried to attack him. And he like, I beat up the dude, pulled him out of the taxi. And now he has the taxi. And so it was like, he was like, hey, he's like, do you want this car? I was like, yeah. I was like, here, I'll give you some dope and I'll trade you for the car. He was like, okay. So I was like, cool. Traded him some dope. So I got this yellow taxi cab. So now I had a car and I was like, cool, man. And so I got some spray paint. I like spray painted half of it, like half like flat black. And I spray painted a ratchet cab on the hood. And we just started running like, this was, maybe like 2009, 2010. And so all of that whole like stealing from stores, things wasn't that big back then. And so, I mean, we were going around, we were going to stores with backpacks, filling up backpacks full of stuff, and running out of the store, going into department stores and taking the big racks of watches, like nice watches, and running with those out of the store. And so one of us would be in the car waiting or something, and guys would come running out, being chased by people, jumping into this cab, and we'd be speeding off. And so we just started causing a lot of trouble around town.
So the descriptions of the cab or of the car are, some people are saying it's a yellow cab, and other people are saying it's a flat black. Yeah, Dodge. Yeah,
dude,
now
it was
depends
nuts,
on which
man.
side of the road you were on when you guys when you guys whipped off.
That was crazy. And they got a big trunk, man. They're like those old Caprices, right? And so like I'd always have in the trunk would always just be full of like random nice stuff. Like I like nice designer stuff. So I'd have all sorts of stuff in the car, stuff that I would end up selling to people I know for money. And
Best dressed homeless guy.
Best dressed homeless guy, dude. I was styling, bro. Had like a Gucci belt on, like I'd have like all sorts of designer stuff. And just start doing everything around the neighborhood that we could to make money. It was like on the west side of LA, it's some pretty, nice neighborhoods. Like Marina Del Rey was a nice neighborhood. So we would go to Marina Del Rey and we would target for a lot of like high end, like triathlon bikes that are like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 bicycles.
Right.
And so we were going and started, peeling a bunch of these bikes. I ended up having stashes of like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of bikes. So this is all during this time. It was actually right before I lost my apartment. I was smoking crystal, and this is when this whole madness started. In the apartment before I lost it, and this is how I actually knew that things had gotten pretty crazy. Actually, from this incident is how I realized that I was on LAPD's Pacific Division's most wanted list. I'm at my apartment before I lose it, and it's midday, and I'm just finished taking a shower. A couple buddies are there, and so hear a knock on the door. That's not like not a hand. It's something hard. Like a flashlight. Everybody knows that sound. And so hear the knock on the door. My buddies come get me. They're like, "Hey, I think the cops are at the door." So okay, I'm on probation at that point in time. So I go to the door and look through the people. It's a couple of cops. One's by the door. One's down farther the hallway. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And they were like, yeah, we're here for a noise complaint. And I'm like, I wasn't even playing any music. And I'm like, okay, what's up? And they're like, well, we have to give you this card. And I'm like, okay, all right, cool, man. You just slide it in the door. I just got out the shower. And they're like, oh no, we have to give this card to you. And I'm like, well, man, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sitting here butt naked, man. Like I just got out the shower. And so this is playing over like maybe like 5 minutes, like almost 10 minutes. And so, it's in the back of my mind. It's like I'm on probation and I'm supposed to comply. Like I can't not comply. That'd be a violation. So eventually I'm like, okay, I got to open the door. So I'm sitting there just going at it with them. And like they won't slide on the door. So I get them. I'm like, okay. I crack the door like maybe 6 inches, not even 6 inches. I'm like, okay, hey, what's up? Hand me the card. And the guy's like, oh, well, did you have any clothes on, man? Did you get out the shower? And I had some boxers on, some white polo Ralph Lauren boxers. And I was like, yeah, I got some boxers on. And so I crack it from like 6 inches to maybe like not even a foot. And as I do that, just to kind of show him I had some boxers on, the guy by the door says, good, we got a warrant, and slams his shoulder into the door. And like I'm spun out, I'm high. is, the kite. And so I instantly just like have my shoulder back into the door. And so I literally have like this like push of war, not like a tug of war, but like a push of war with the door with this cop, man. And I'm spun out of my mind. So I'm winning. I'm closing the door on this dude. And but it starts bowing out. And as it bows out, once they get close to closing, I see at the bottom, he's got his boot is inside the threshold. And so I knew like the door's not going to close.
Right.
By that point in time, my buddies had bailed off the patio. And so like it was all in slow motion. I like stop and I turn and I see the patio with a curtain and like the light coming from behind the patio. And I swear I heard this sound like, oh, and I'm like, all right, shit, man, I'm going. And so I gave myself a count. I'm like, all right, on 3, man, just fucking go. So I was like, 1, 2, 3, like took it and broke. And it's like a straight shot through the hallway and then straight through the living room. And then the patio was like almost lined up with the front door. So I just start beelining it through the apartment. And I can feel this dude, like door slams open. I can feel this dude behind me and get through the living room. And I get to the curtain, to the patio. And so I'm like, I got no time. So I literally like swim move the curtain. And from there, it's about like 4 feet and then like a 3-foot railing. And then you got like a hedge bush that's another few feet. And then it's about a 6-foot drop. So I'm like, shit, man, I don't have any time. So I just swim move the curtain and just fucking Superman it off the patio. And like flying. I'm clearing it. I'm clearing everything. But then I realized like how high I am. And I was like, oh shit. So I just kind of start to tuck. I tuck a little bit and I spin. I land on my back in this planter. But next thing you know, I'm like up on my feet. And then I'm out of the planter. And then I'm in the grass. And then next thing you know, I'm in the street. And I'm like, oh shit.
In your boxers?
In just my boxers, no shoes, no nothing. Turns out my phone's in my hand though, which was pretty cool. And so I turn around and I look, and this dude's like barely putting his boot on the railing to jump over. And I'm like, man, I'm gone.
Right.
And so there's 2 alleys. And so I'm like, I got to get to that far alley. That close one's too close. And so I start beelining it down my street in the middle of the day. And there's like, the first house I come to, one of the neighbors' houses, he's like out on the lawn, like watering his lawn. And I just start getting it. And I see this dude and he looks at me like, what the fuck? And I'm like, don't look. Cars are driving past me. I'm like, all right, just pick a spot down the street and fucking get there. Like I played football. I went to a running coach. Like I worked on my running form. Like I had that shit dialed. And so I'm getting it down the street and I could feel the bottom of like my toes like tearing up on the asphalt. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I'm like, man, just get there. And so I'm getting it, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm doing good. Like, where is this guy? I want to look. But I'm like, nah, don't look. If you look, it's going to slow you down like half a pace. You know what I mean? So I don't look, make it to the other alley. And as soon as I get to the other alley, I stop and I turn and look. Well, I don't stop, but like I break my stride and look. And he's like half a block back. And I'm like, man, I got this dude. So I peel down the alley, I go up into some apartment buildings, and like at that point, it kind of hits me that I'm just in my boxers. So I kind of like start like crouching around and stuff. And like I call my homegirl that lived down the street, and I'm like, I call her, and I'm like, hey, the fucking cops are chasing me. Come pick me up. And she's like, dude, she was like, I was on my way to your house. I just drove past you running down the street in your fucking boxers. I was like, turn the fuck around, come pick me up. So she comes up, pulls in the street. I go running out, dive into the car, and we get out of there. And it just was, I remember that being on like whatever day of the week that was. I go to my buddy's house that's in another part of, it's still Pacific Division, LAPD Pacific Division, but it's like on the other side of the district. And so I go to my buddy's house, I lay low for like a day or two, and I just can't, I like, I'm smoking crystals. So like, I got to do something. Mm-hmm. So like a day and a half goes by and I'm like, all right, let's get out of here. So we go up to, he lived right by La Cienega and Venice, which are 2 major streets. And so we go up to like a Ross on La Cienega, and I'm like walking around the Ross, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna go to your house and go get some of your stuff, because I didn't have any of my stuff. He had given me some clothes to wear. So I'm like, okay, cool. So he goes to my house, and then at that point in time, I was like, man, that's a bad idea. Like now I'm on foot, not good. So I'm like, this isn't good. I can't be in public on foot. I'm going to go back to his house. So I walk out, I start walking down La Cienega to get to his house in Venice, off Venice Boulevard. And as soon as I start making my way down La Cienega, a black and white rolls by me. And I'm like, oh shit. They keep going, no brake lights or nothing. I'm like, okay, cool. But I like stop, I like tighten my stuff up. You know, I tighten my shoes up, I tighten my pants up. And so then I just keep walking. I get to the next block, and as soon as I get into the intersection, I can see from my peripheral that the black and white is tucked up against the building. And I'm like, these fuckers. So I get like into the crosswalk and I'm walking. As soon as I get into the crosswalk, they bleep me. They're like, hey, you. And I just keep walking. And they're like, hey, you. And I'm like, fuck, man. So I turned to look. And as soon as I turned to look, and I guess they got a visual on my face, they were like, yeah, you, come here. And I was like, what? I just like started like hopping and skipping. Like I'm almost starting to run. I'm like, what, man? Like I didn't do anything. They're like, yeah, come here. And I just was like, fuck that, man. I just turned and took off. At least this time I had some shoes on, man. And so I take off. I run across the street. I think one guy started to chase me. The other guy got in the car. But run across the street, and right there by La Cienega and Venice is a big like Kaiser Permanente. And run across the street, running by the hospital, and they're in the car at that point in time. I run in, I run through a ticket booth. I'm like, okay, that'll stop them for a second. Run through the ticket booth, and then I like make a decision on like whether to go into the hospital or not. And I was like, nah, it's just too many people there. You know, too many eyes, too many cameras. Divert on the hospital, and then I just run across the street. There's some apartment complexes. I'm gonna try and make it to my buddy's house. So I run across this other street, get over these big apartment fences, make it to the other side of the street, get down. I'm almost there. I'm like about like 2 blocks away, and I'm going down the street pretty like in the cut. And there's one alleyway that they could come up. So I'm being cautious of this alley. As soon as I get up to the alley, I see they're actually coming down that alley. So I have to backtrack, run back over to this big like 20-foot fence that I hopped. So I get to the fence and I'm getting kind of gassed. So I'm like, fuck, man. I hit this fence, I get up to the top, but I can't pull myself over. And so I'm like, I'm fucking caught, man. I like fall down, but I turn around, I look, and they're not there. I'm like, oh shit. So I grab a trash can, set the trash can there. That gave me just enough to kind of where I could get up over the fence. Get over the fence. As I'm getting over the fence, I start to hear and I'm like, oh shit, man. They had called the ghetto bird, you know, the helicopter. And so
Ghetto bird.
Yeah, the ghetto bird. Yeah, man. And I knew at that point, I heard it, but it wasn't anywhere visual yet. Like I couldn't see it. So I was like, I knew my clock was ticking, man. So from the fence, I was onto a carport, and it was a decently high carport. And so, but there was a couple trash cans. So I literally jumped off the carport, bounced off the trash cans, up on my feet again, and run out to, this was actually Cadillac is the name of the street, run out to Cadillac, run down Cadillac, and I run back across La Cienega Boulevard. There's like cars everywhere. Cars are scorching tires, almost hitting each other. I run back behind these 2 gas stations, tuck up in an apartment building, and I call my homeboy. I'm like, dude, where the fuck are you at, dude? The fucking cops are chasing me, man. And he's like, I'm at your house, man. I'm like, dude, hurry up and get over here, bro. So I'm sitting there, the helicopter's above, I can see cop cars coming, you know, and they're all in all these side streets. And I'm tucked up in this apartment, and I'm kind of dirty from like the ivy and stuff that I was running over. Some old lady comes out and kind of looks at me, and I'm like, yeah, hey, hi, ma'am, it's kind of hot today, huh? And she kind of gives me a weird look. I call my boy back, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Where are you at, dude? And he's like, I'm just getting there. He's like, but they've got the place surrounded, bro. I don't know how I'm going to get to you. I was like, man. So I'm sitting there, I just don't know what I'm going to do. And he calls me back about 30 seconds later. He's like, hey, they left one of the alleyways open. He's like, this front alleyway. He's like, I'm coming down that alleyway. So ran out to the alleyway, jumped in his van, got underneath like a blanket that he had in there, and we ended up getting out of there. But that's how I learned at that point in time. They had my flyer up in the cop cars of my face and my buddy's face, just from all the shit we were doing around the neighborhood. It was a cat and mouse game for a while. Eventually I had gone to go see my dad, at his apartment, and went there at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, I had to really kind of navigate. It was tough for me to get places in the neighborhood. And so I got to see him. It was his birthday, and I'm in there, I'm sitting on the couch, but next thing you know, I like wake up. I guess I had nodded out on the couch, wake up, and my dad's there in his robe, his hair's wet, and like it's a little bit of daylight out, so I know it's morning. And he's like, "Hey, Anthony, I'm so sorry, man, but they got the place surrounded." And I was like, "What?" So when I looked, they had the patio blocked off, the sides of the place blocked off, and I was just like, "All right, man, I got nowhere to go." So
How did they track you to your dad's house?
so they knew that was like
It was just one of your addresses. Yeah.
right. And it was his birthday, I think, and so I think they just figured that, hey,
Put it out,
I might
put it
want
together.
yeah, he might want to see his dad on his birthday, and they'll usually hit houses early in the morning, like 6 8, they hit houses early in the morning.
Yeah.
So so that happened. They hit the house, and it was kind of funny. Are we get rolling or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. So they hit the house. I had nowhere to go, and so I was like, "All right, Dad, I guess let him in." So I had like made my way back to the back bedroom, while he went to go let him in, and I went and I laid down on the bed and kind of just was laid out on the bed, with my arms out and everything. And so they come in, they're like, "Oh, he's in here. We found him," and they're like, "Oh no, motherfucker!" Like, like pulled me off the bed. They're not going to do anything on the bed. So they like grab my foot and like, yank my ass off the bed. I'm on the ground. I get knees in my back. They make my elbow touch the back of my head, and like rough me up a little bit, So snatch my ass up. I end up going down to the division, and they put me in the tank, like off to the side. And, guys, it was like shift change right around that time. And so guys are coming in, guys are leaving. And I remember guys like seeing me and guys being like, "Yeah," and like high-fiving each other. And I'm like, "Oh shit, like what's going on?" And I was like, "You guys are acting like I'm a big deal or something. What's the deal? I'm just some, dumb kid causing problems." But I guess apparently it was some sort of a deal, because like guys were walking by. I guess everybody had.
Well, they've probably been looking for you for several days, right? At least they have your photograph on a wanted poster sitting in their car.
Yeah, I don't think they liked that I was getting away from them too.
Right.
You know what I mean? But so that had happened. It was just a real vicious cycle of these kind of things occurring. And then when I'd go into custody in LA County Jail, since my first charge was violent, I would go to a lot of high security places. So I would go to LA County Jail has a notorious place called Supermax that's up at Wayside, which is Pitch's Detention Center, it's not in downtown where the other facilities are, like Twin Towers and everything, but this is out by like Magic Mountain. I forget what area that is. It's by like Lake Castaic. So they have a few housing units, facilities at Wayside. Supermax is one. East Max is another one that they've shut down. It was like a pre-fire camp for a little while. Then they have like Medium North and Medium South. Those are just due to security levels. So a lot of the time I would go to Supermax because my security level was high. However, before I would make it out to Wayside, there were times where I'd be in LA County and downtown. And around that time, the sheriffs were on another level, man. It was a big thing, like I'd mentioned, like the law enforcement having gangs. Sheriff departments would have gangs within their department. One of them, for example, was the 3000 Boys. 3000 Boys are notorious sheriff gang that worked the men's central jail in downtown. They worked the 3000 floor. The 3000 floor was a high security floor. And so these guys were big dudes, man. They were all like 6 feet tall or taller. A lot of these guys were all running gear, so they're all juiced up. They're big old swole dudes.
Right.
They're all blasted up. They're all sleeved up and everything. And back then, guys would wear, sheriffs would have a what do you call it? Their belt, their belt with all like their cuffs and stick and all that things on it. These guys wouldn't wear a belt. They just have their pants with their regular belt on and a big old mag light in their back pocket, and maybe some cuffs like stuffed in their pants. And these dudes would go around and they'd give everybody they'd show a lot of love. They'd give guys a lot of mag light therapy. And so it was like, if you're in there and you look, and literally like if you look at these dudes, like if you make eye contact with them, they'll smash you in the face with their mag light. And they were beating people all the time. Like this was a regular occurrence. It got so bad that the sheriffs ended up getting indicted. The head sheriff, he got indicted. I think it was Tanaka. I forget his undersheriffs. No, it was Baca. Lee Baca was the head sheriff. He got indicted. The undersheriff, Tanaka, got indicted. And then a bunch of the other sheriffs ended up getting indicted. It was a big case. The feds got involved with it and everything. But when I was going through LA County Jail, this is how it was ran back then. It was a pretty serious kind of place. Today it's a little bit different, and I don't know if it's a good thing. So I'd do time there, or I'd go out to Supermax, and just from starting to do time, everything is very everything's segregated. Like when you go in there, the sheriffs ask you, like, who do you run with? Because everything's split up by race. It's either you run white, you run South Side, which is like Hispanics, or you're a Paisa, which are just the Hispanics that don't speak English. There's others, which are Asians, Middle Easterners, Islanders, and then there's the blacks. So there's 5 different races. And so when you go in there, they ask who you run with, and then you tell them who you run with, and then when you go in there, everything's, you go to your people. They give you the rundown on the protocol, like how the program operates in there. Hey, these are our showers, these are our phones, these are our tables, these are our toilets, these are our sinks. Everything's segregated. And so there's a lot of protocols to follow, just like you don't play card games with other races, you don't play sports with other races. There's a whole long list of do's and don'ts. Mm-hmm. And so in there, I guess some guys aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. So a lot of guys sometimes have hard times following the rules, stuff like that. So just for me, ended up doing a little bit of time, and always paying attention of what's going on, because it's a pretty serious place in there. Dudes are getting dealt with. People are getting into all sorts of trouble. I just paid attention to what was going on. So I learned the program. I learned what you do, what you don't do, and then also I just ran my program, my routine, very structured. Like I would make sure my bed area is clean, all my stuff is in order. I'd make sure that I was working out. I had a lot of respect. Like I always treated people with respect. I had my manners, etc. And that just turned out to be a good blueprint on way to run things. So through being there over periods of time, the position would come up where the representative for our race would end up going home or going upstate to prison. And a lot of the times I would end up in that position. I'd end up being a shot caller, whatever you want to call it. Most of the time it wasn't really something I wanted to do, but I would step into play to do it because I knew how everything ran and how it should ran, and that would keep peace within the unit. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to get into a wreck where we're getting in a riot with another race because some guy does something stupid. Right. You know what I mean? So I ended up being a shot caller in a bunch of places, in Supermax for a long time, many different places in LA County Jail. This madness would continue. I'd be sober when I was incarcerated because there'd be so many problems that revolved around drugs, whether it was guys were racking up dope debts and then getting smashed, beat up off the unit. And like your reputation carries with you. Like if you get smashed out of a unit, wherever you land in that next unit, they're going to know about it by the time you get there, and you're going to get smashed out of that unit. And you just keep getting smashed basically until you PC up. So it's a pretty serious place. So ran some units, saw a lot of crazy things happen in there. I'd be sober. However, when I would get out, unfortunately, I'd find myself back into my addiction.
Well, how much time did you do the first, when you got arrested for this, the running from the cops and the whole thing?
So that time I ended up getting, I think I got, it was a prison term. It was like 16 with half, because a lot of the things they got me on were nonviolent.
What is 16 with half?
16 months with half.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a first prison term for me. And so the things that they were able to get me for were not very much. It was like they knew all the things that I was doing, but they had me on camera in a garage. Mm-hmm. So it was like, since that was attached to an apartment complex, they were able to call that like a residential burglary, which was like, I think that's what they ended up getting me on. And so that was, even though I didn't take anything, they didn't have me taking anything, that was still, I think it was like 16, 1, 2, or 3, 16 months, 1 year, or 3 years. And I got the low term because it was my first case. So even though it's a prison term and it's nonviolent, due to AB 109, which was like a depopulation bill that was passed, If your crime is nonviolent, you're going to do all your time in the county jail, which was kind of messed up. There were guys that had like 20 years with half time, doing like 10 years in the county jail. The guy with the most time that I met was a Paisa, and he had like I have like 10 DUIs or something, and they gave him like 53 years with halftime. He was doing like 21 years in the county jail. Do time in the county jail. I did a couple like 16 with halves, did a few 8 months. So I'd do like 8 months, get out, be out for a brief period of time, go back in, do another 8 months. I got.
Are you going back in for more burglaries or just more?
Yeah, and there was a grand theft. There was one time I got caught. I was always stealing stuff. I'd have like I do my research though. It was like, you go into places and they'd have like the security sensors. So I would go and get online and find the tool that they would use to unlock the sensors.
Yeah.
So I would go and order those things. I had all the tools with me. So I would go. So one time I was at a Saks off Fifth, which was off La Cienega there in LA. Went in there, saw like a pair of Prada shoes that looked like Chuck Taylor's. I was like, okay, those are cool. So I got those. Then I went by the belts. I saw a couple Burberry belts. There were like some other belts too. So I got a couple of Burberry belts, took the sensors off, put them in a bag, and get out the door. Dude starts chasing me. I outrun one dude. I end up running through the streets, running through a parking complex, outrun the first dude. And then I'm like trying to get back to my car, and another dude comes out, and I was gassed by that time. So the second dude caught me, ended up getting in trouble for that. And it was funny. It was, the cutoff between petty theft and grand theft was like $950. And so with the shoes and the two belts, it came to $970. It was $20 over the limit. And so that one gave me a grand theft. I would get programs, drug mandated, drug abuse mandated programs, get out, go to the program, get kicked out of the programs, all sorts of dumb stuff. Eventually, it was one point in time where they had given me I had a joint suspension. Like they had given me a break, gave me a program, but the judge was like, if you come back, I'm going to give you your max sentence. Okay. Go to the program. Long story short, I kind of got done wrong. I went on my first pass to go pick up my property. And so I went from Carson to Santa Monica, which like I had to take 2 trains, a bus. By the time I get to Santa Monica, my half day pass was up. So I call them. I'm like, hey, I just made it to the department to get my property. What's up? And they're like, okay, well, your pass is up, but just get back here and we'll talk about it when you get back.
So the sheriffs are waiting for you when you get back.
Well, so I make it back and all my stuff's outside, and I kind of didn't really get along with the counselor. Like I'm not the dumbest guy, so when they would be having classes, like I'd answer all the questions pretty easily, and the counselor for some reason didn't like that. So the counselor had all my stuff set out in the driveway when I got back. So I go into the house to talk to the program manager, the person that oversaw everything. It was this lady, and I was like, hey, what's up? I was like, I took 2 buses. I got there to get my property. It was a half day pass. I called when I got there to let him know I just got there. And she was like, wait a minute, you called and let him know? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And she was like, oh, he didn't mention that you called. That's a completely different story. I'm like, wow. She's like, well, it's already too late. She's like, I'm going to give you this letter that shows that you just have to be gone for 30 days, but then you can come back. Like was just a discrepancy. She's like, just take that to court right away and you'll be all right. I was like, okay. So I went to court that Monday, showed it to the judge, and he's like, okay. He's like, all right, that's cool. 30 days, go back to the program. But if I see you again, I'm going to give you your joint suspension, which was a 3-year joint suspension. So my dumbass, I take 30 days and I'm like, I'm just going to take 2 weeks more and then go check back in. And so within the first week after the 30 days, I'm going to go pick up a buddy at a house that's hot in the neighborhood. And I'm telling him, I'm like, hey, dude, be outside. Don't have me waiting. I pull up front and he's not outside. I'm like, motherfucker. So I go up, knock on the window. And as soon as I walk back to the car, a black and white pulls up. They pull me aside, run my name. Turns out I had a no bail warrant because I guess at 31 days, I was supposed to check back into the program. So I go back to court, and the judge is like, "Oh, you're back so soon." He's like, "I'm gonna give you you're getting your joint suspension." I was like, "What?" I was telling him, "Look, nobody said I had to be back in 31 days. You said be gone for at least 30 days." He's like, "Nope, that's it. You're going." Boom. That was in January. This was 2014, and so 2-3 months, April 10th. I'm a few months into this. I had to do 16 months because it was 3 years with half. And so April 10th, 2014 was a Saturday. The next day, Sunday, I get called outside to contact home. I was at Medium South Yard. And so I go outside. They say, hey, you need to contact home. I didn't really know what that meant at that point in time. But usually means something happened within your family, that somebody passed away. So I call my dad, and he tells me that my brother's dead. So my brother Angelo, my one brother that I was really close with, the only sibling that I had, my only full-blooded sibling, with a guy from our construction company, a supervisor for ours. My brother had let him go, laid him off for a couple of months because work was slow. And he knew where my brother lived, and they started, talking shit to each other, threatening each other. I'll kill you. No, I'll fucking kill you. And egos got involved, and the dude just pulled up. We had a place off Benedict Canyon up off Sunset Boulevard, and the guy just pulled up, got out of his truck, pulled out a weapon, and started firing. I don't really know all the details on it because I hadn't got into I wanted to look at the report and everything, but once you kind of do that, you can't unsee things. So I'm not sure if he caught a bullet with the first barrage. He then made it to the front door, got in behind the front door, and the guy turned around and let off another barrage of bullets at the front door. He ended up taking a bullet in the femoral artery, and then it got him to hunch over and took a bullet behind the ear. So he died there. Don't know how quickly. Was pretty interesting was that happened on the day before, on that Saturday. And at that same point in time, between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. on that Saturday, we had a count at South Yard. I was at South, and we go outside and stand on these boxes, and they're doing count, and I'm getting fucking pissed off, man. For no reason. I didn't know why. I was really, really angry. I learned to control my anger when I was younger. I had anger issues. I got in all sorts of shit. But I was really, really I wanted to hurt somebody. And I didn't know why. And so count took place. Then after count, you do a little cleanup in the unit. And so I went, I stood by my rack, and I had to be by my rack for a while, for a couple of hours. I was really, really angry, man. I didn't know what was going on. But sure enough, at that point in time, my brother was laid out leaking, man, and died right then. So,
I expected you to say an overdose because he had the overdose earlier. That's what I thought was.
No, he had kind of cut back on the powder use because he started having heart issues because he was so overweight,
right?
A little overweight. So he had kind of straightened up a little bit. However, there was a lot of things taking place with the construction company it was challenging. Money would be good, money wouldn't be good. He had a bad habit of budgeting. He wasn't budgeting very well, and so there was always that issue. And it was pretty messed up, man. There was a whole thing because they were going to have a wake for my brother in LA and then have the funeral in San Diego. And so we brought it to court because you can get approved to go to a funeral. And so initially I was denied. Then I got approved. Then I got denied again. And then I got approved again. And it got all the way to the point where we're getting ready to pay the fees that you have to pay for the sheriffs to transport you and everything. And then it got turned down. It got denied again. So it was a real roller coaster of things. It turned out that since there wasn't a physical body present at the wake, that I couldn't go. An actual body has to be present. Yeah. So I ended up not being able to go to that. Didn't get out for about 1.5 years after that. So I got out 1.5 years after that, and was off paper, off probation. So I was like, fuck LA. I'm going to go to San Diego, be close to my mom, support my mom. And her husband, they had opened a restaurant down there. I was going to go down there, work for the restaurant, and just kind of be done with everything. So get out, go to San Diego, had an apartment set up, start working with them for 2 or 3 weeks. And some issue came up that was just a completely overblown thing that was just got turned into, I'm freaking I think they knew that the whole restaurant thing has been a real loose ran operation. And so I got there, I was working there, and taking a smoke break. I take a smoke break. I go off on the side of the building. I'm smoking a cigarette, and I go and I like retuck my shirt and literally like unbutton my pants, like the top of my pants, tuck my shirt in. And the lady that was one of the employees comes walking by, and I see her, and she's getting ready to leave. I'm like off on the side of the building in this little cut, smoking a cigarette. And I see her. I'm like, oh, hey, okay, all right, have a good evening. Oh, yeah, all right, have a good one. Take care. And so she leaves, and the manager for the restaurant, this lady was a full-blown alcoholic. I knew she was no good. Like, I just got a good people radar just from all the time I've been doing time. Like, you just read people pretty good. And so when I first met her, my mom was like, what do you think about her? And I'm like, no good. I'm like, she's no good. It's everything appears good, but I don't trust her. And so oddly enough, she ends up making up some fucking way out story. She says that I was on the side of the building with my pants down.
All right.
Like, what the fuck? Why would I be on the building? Like, give me a break. So my mom's husband like hears this story, and I'm like, that's bullshit. I was like, let's call this other lady that was the employee that was actually there, because that's not what happened. But he was like, nope, that's it. You don't have a job. So all of a sudden I'm there in San Diego with no job, with an apartment and a car. And I resort to doing what I had always done. I started smoking crystal again, and started selling dope. So same thing happens in San Diego. Things start getting crazy real quick. Next thing you know, all sorts of crime throughout the city. I was selling dope. A buddy that had done a favor for me says, hey, I got a girl that I grew up with. I need you to sell some dope to her. Okay. I didn't like it. Didn't seem comfortable. Went ahead and did it because I owed him a favor. So I did that, and it happened a couple of times, sold her some dope a couple of times. And then it got to the point where she was like, hey, I need you to meet my homegirl. I can't make it down. Will you meet my homegirl and sell her some dope? And it went from like 1 ounce to 2 ounces. And so I meet this other girl, and I just didn't have a comfortable feeling about it. I really didn't. Sell her 2 ounces. Nothing happens. Okay, whatever. Continue on in my madness. Some time goes by. About a year goes by, and at that point in time, I had a couple of streets that were filled with cars that were not mine. You know, I had like a Crown Royal bag, like a big, velvet bag that was full of key fobs. I had dozens of car keys to all these cars, and I was driving an Audi.
So you're what are you stealing cars and parking them up and down the street you live on? They're just parked.
Yeah, I was living out of hotels. So okay. Yeah, I was living out of hotels. Just things weren't going very good. I wasn't like balling out of control. I had a bunch of money. It was always like just trying to barely survive.
Right.
But there was a buddy of mine that lived in this neighborhood, and so there was a couple of streets within that neighborhood that I had all these cars parked on. So I was driving one of the stolen cars, and a guy called me because there was a thing at that time where you could get cars through, we would go to rental car companies, and you could run a card that didn't work, and I would call a number that was somebody that I knew, and they would act like customer service. And so I'd be like, hey, my card got declined. What's going on? And she'd be like, oh, it's because you've used a couple of charges that are over the limit. So we didn't know if that was you. So we put a hold on it. They're like, let us talk to the employee there. So you put them on the phone with them. And then my friend would then give them an access code that would actually pull something up and temporarily allow the card to be used, even though there was no money on it. Right. It was like a bypass. And so then you would charge it, and then we would get the car, and then we would just keep the car. And so a guy called me from the rental car place and was like, hey, I have this car you've been waiting on to pick up. I'm like, okay, I'll be there. It was Friday, about 5 p.m. I'm in like northern part of San Diego, and I got to get to downtown. So, being crazy driving in LA, growing up driving in LA, it's like you drive very aggressive, but defensively. And so like a lot of the time I just drive on the shoulder. Like if there's traffic, I just drive on the shoulder. And so, I'm in this stolen Audi, and I hadn't changed the plates yet. I had just gotten this car. And so I'm driving on the shoulder pretty much from like Claremont all the way to downtown. If anybody knows San Diego, it's about a good 15-minute drive. But I ended up having to drive the whole time on the shoulder, get into downtown. And as soon as I get into downtown, I'm coming in down on 6th Street, and I go over the bridge, and then I see a black and white. And so I'm just kind of aware. I get over a lane, and he goes, and he does get behind me, but doesn't light me up. I get to the next intersection, and I hear like a swarm of cop cars, like multiple sirens. So I look to my right, and it's probably about like almost a dozen cop cars heading my direction. So I take off.
They got the tag number and they realize that it's stolen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I take them on a high-speed pursuit in the middle of downtown San Diego on Friday at like 5:30 p.m. Man, there's cars everywhere. There's people everywhere. And so it's like a tricked out Audi, man. It had like all sorts of work done to it. And so I'm like bobbing and weaving people. I don't hit anybody or anything. Make it around these few one-way streets and end up getting towards a freeway entrance. Get onto the freeway. It all bottlenecks, so I lose most of these cops. And get on the freeway. I pin it, and as soon as I pin it and I'm moving, some guy gets into my lane. There was another car next to me. I had nowhere to go, so the guy just bumps me a little bit, but it pops the tire. And so I managed to keep it on the road. I get off on the first exit. I had some chick with me, some ratchet girl that I was with, and her actually mom was in the back seat while this was taking place.
How are they handling it?
She was cool. The mom was freaking out. Like while I'm driving, like initially and going through this pursuit, she's freaking out, jumping all over the back seat. And I'm like telling her, like, sit the fuck down. Like I can't see out the rearview mirror. Put your fucking seatbelt on. And so we get off. And as soon as I throw it in park, the girl's out the car and running. I'm like, good girl. Like I get out the car, I'm running. I think the mom stayed in the car. So I'm out, I'm running, go to a house. This first house had barbed wire on a fence. I was like, what the fuck? Hop over this fence, get peeled by this barbed wire a little bit. And I start hopping fences. I'm running these houses, and I'm going to go and make it cut back down to the freeway. And I was going to run across the freeway. And then I would have had a good chance of getting away. As I get down towards the freeway, I see a whole line of cop cars already there. And I was like, that's not going to work. So I turn around and start beelining it back, hopping fences. And as I'm getting close, I start hearing guys coming. And so I'm in a backyard of a house, and I see a crawl space, like a little grate underneath the house. So I pull the grate off, shimmy up under this crawl space and under this house. And I'm trying to put the grate on, and like the first time I put it on, it like doesn't go flush. I'm like, fuck. So I like push it off again, trying to get it going flush. It doesn't go flush. Try like 3 or 4 times. The last time it's still not flush, but I just try and like pull it in. Shimmy up underneath the house. I see boots coming in through the holes and everything. They come, they go, they come, they go. Like 15 minutes goes by and they're gone. And I'm like, okay, I think I got away. And then finally, like one pair of boots comes down, and so I'm just quiet. And he comes down and he kind of stops. I can see him through the grate, the crawl space, and he kind of like turns around. I can tell he's like examining it. It sees it's not flush, and gets down, pulls it out, and gets under there with the flashlight. Finds me with the flashlight. Oh, I found him. So they pull me out, pat me down. I had the key to a Bentley that I was getting ready to go get. This ends up being my sobriety date, October 5th, 2018. So they take me to San Diego jail. And
2018. It was not very long ago. That's that's 7 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, it's almost 7 years clean today.
You still got to go to prison.
Oh, it gets better, man. So I'm in jail, and I'm looking at this case, and it's like, felony. It's a GTA, felony resisting, felony evading, like 3 or 4 felonies on this case. And so I'm in jail, and I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, what am I doing, bro? Like, this is just nuts. Like it's October. So now it's like November. My brother's birthday is November 5th. Remember the 5th of November. And, the holidays are coming up again. And I'm like, dude, like how many holidays have I been locked up for now? I like start counting. I'm like 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5. I was like, I don't want to count more than that. I could probably keep counting. I was like, this is stupid. I'm like, what's going on? It was like a light bulb went off in my head, and it's like, it's your addiction, dummy, And I was like, okay. And I was going to a church service actually in jail, and I was in the service, and I literally like broke down, dude. Like first time I'd ever really like broke down. I was like, wow, okay. So I'm in my cell and I'm kind of like talking to God. When I first started doing time, my dad had told me like, you should get into your Bible, man. You should read your Bible. And so I started reading my Bible when I was first getting locked up. And so like I started developing that relationship. So I was in my cell and I was just talking to God, and I'm like, God, man, like, what's up, dude? Like,
Can't keep doing this.
like, this is crazy.
It's not working.
This isn't working, man. And I remember him being like, I have something better for you, man. Like, stop, trust me. I have something better for you. I was like, okay. I was like, all right, I'm done. Like, that's it. And I was like, it'd be nice if you can give me a program. I'll run a program. I know how to do it. And I'll fucking send it. And so I was really, working. I was really honing in my frequency with God at that point in time. And so we go on the court bus to go to court one day, and it's looking like this could be when I'm going to get sentenced. And I'm talking to God on the bus. I'm like, dude, I talk to God like he's my friend, man, like he's my homeboy. So I'm like, dude, man, like, what's up, man? Like, I need some sort of sign from you, God. Like, let me know you're on the team, or I'm on your team. And at that point, we passed a church, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. Like, I hear you talking. I was like, but I'm hard headed, man. I need another sign. Like, what's up? And so we passed the second church, and the second church we passed had a crow on top of the cross. And I'd always seen my brother like in crows. I know there's like a negative thing with crows and stuff like that, but we have a buddy that had overdosed on black, and my brother used to say he would see him in crows. And then when my brother passed, it was the same thing. I would see all these crows around. My brother has a daughter. She ended up finding like a crow's feather on her car, and that was before she even knew that I had any sort of thing that was going on with crows. She told me like, oh, I found a crow's feather on the car, and like, I think that has something to do with Angelo. So there's a big thing with that. So I saw the crow on that cross, and I was like, all right, man, like, all right, let's go. So we go into court, and I was looking at prison time, for all these felony charges. And the judge goes, there was no offer of a program at all. And the judge goes, you know what? He's like, for some reason, I feel like I want to offer this guy a program. I was like, what? He was like, how would you feel would you be interested in taking a drug program, a residential program, and you got to go to outpatient afterwards, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, absolutely, 100%. So I got the program, and I had seen guys be successful in a program. They had to fully submerge themselves in it. And so it was like, I volunteered for everything. I was volunteering to help out. I was volunteering to go on these estate sales. I was doing the landscaping on the places. It got to the point where they would just call the house where I was at and be like, hey, we need Anthony. And I would just go. So things are going really well in the program. Getting ready to graduate the program, move on to the outpatient. They were going to ask me to be a house manager for one of the outpatient houses. And it was 2 days before my birthday. My birthday's May 24th. On May 20th, I had gone to the dentist to get some implants done. I had a couple back teeth that were bad. I had a front tooth that was on a flipper because I'd had my front teeth knocked out back in the day. And so I went to go get 4 implants. It was 3/4 of the cost of doing the whole thing. So we decided to do the whole upper arc. So that day, had the surgery on the 20th. It was a Monday. Extracted all my upper teeth, put this upper arc implant in. And so I'm looking like a chipmunk. My face is all swollen. It was 2 days after that. It was on a Wednesday, so I was kind of not really feeling too well. And I'm at the house, and I was laying in the bed, and I remember getting this feeling, man. I had this feeling like something's not right. So I go into the house, and I heat up a bowl of oatmeal. I'm eating this oatmeal, and the lady comes in and says that I have a visitor. Like, it's Wednesday, man. You don't have visitors on Wednesdays. I stand up, I look out the window, and it's a bunch of black vehicles, and I was like, shit. So I sit back down. Some guy comes walking in with a badge around his neck and says he's a U.S. Marshal. And I was like, ugh. He says he's a U.S. Marshal. If I'm Anthony Autry, I said, yeah. He says, I have a federal warrant for you. I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, that means you have to come with us. I was like, man, can I call my attorney? He's like, yeah, when you get in the car. I was like, okay. So they take me. They don't let me take any of my meds from my mouth, like any of this rinse, all my antibiotics, nothing. Call the attorney in the car, and he's like, yeah, it's all bad. I'm like, what do you mean all bad? He's like, I don't know what's going on yet, but it's not good. So it turns out that girl that I had a bad feeling about, which was then a few years prior, ended up being an undercover, and it was a controlled buy she made for me. I guess apparently I was done screwing around, done selling dope, and I guess they figured they had to get me for something. That was the only thing they had me on. So they got me for a controlled buy, 2 ounces, which is just over the Fed's 50-gram minimum for
Picking it up, or
for the buy. If there's a distribution charge for either crystal or black over 50 grams, it can carry a 10-year mandatory minimum.
so they just keep doing the buys and doing the buys until they've got enough to give you the hit the minimum.
Yeah, or
Instead
whatever
of arresting
else.
you the first time.
Yeah. So I contact a friend of the family is Jan Ronis. He's he defended like the Ariano brothers and a bunch of big time cartel people. He's a super attorney there in San Diego, and he was a friend of the family. So I talked to Jan, and I'm like, "What's up?" And he's like, "You're burnt, dude. Like you got nothing coming. If you sign, they won't impose the mandatory minimums." I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" He's like, "You'll get less than 10." I'm like 2, 8, 5. He's like, "Don't know." He's like, "Sign and you'll get less than 10. If you don't, you're screwed." So I signed. They ended up giving me 77 months for 2 ounces of dope, and which was tough because I had already been done. I had almost a year clean, and I was like, but I took accountability for it. Something I did. Take responsibility for it. I think that only when somebody takes responsibility for something in life can they then make a change for it. They can make a change. Otherwise, if you stay in a victim mentality, you're giving the power away.
Right.
So took responsibility for it, and I knew how to do time. Like I've been doing time for a while, so I was like, I'm just going to go in here and work on my personal development. So got in there, started. I went to college through correspondence. I got a degree. I started tracking my macros, tracking all my nutrition longhand, got the math equation, started tracking all my food, got under 10% body fat.
Where'd you do your time?
In the feds, I ended up doing, there was while you're waiting to get sentenced, I ended up doing about like 8 months, 10 months in Orange County Jail. They have a contract with the feds for
U.S. Marshals holdover.
Yeah, until you're sentenced. And so then I got the RDAP program, residential drug abuse program. And so in the Western region, there was only a couple facilities that had it. There was one in Colorado, and then there was one in Oregon at Sheridan. So I ended up I was designated and did all my time at FCI Sheridan, the medium there. I was there with that dude, Big Meech. He was in my unit.
Right.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. He's all right. He runs a good program. He's a good dude.
How was RDAP?
It was a shit show, man. You got it was so backed up from COVID, and then backed up from guys that don't get the time off because they would still get a few months
Extra halfway house.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was backed up. Didn't start when I was supposed to start. I didn't start until like almost a year too late. So I didn't end up getting all of the time for off that I should have for RDAP. And then I got more halfway house time. Then also I was eligible for the First Step Act. So I took all these First Step Act classes for the 4.5 years that I was there, racked up all these point credits for it, and didn't get any of my First Step Act stuff. And everybody,
why? Just because they hadn't implemented the
only a few guys were getting it. It was really odd. It seemed like they were really picking and choosing who got the First Step Act credit.
Right.
It was a very strict criteria of guys that were getting it. It was a specific race, and it was just I don't know, it seemed very odd. But it was a shit show, man. Everybody in there was getting high. I think there was like maybe 1% of the guys weren't getting high. 1% of the guys actually wanted to make change. Everybody's just faking the funk to, get through and get some time off.
Faking your way through the program.
Yeah.
What is it? There's like 6 or 7 different things that they say. Like one is faking it through, and then they've got a bunch of. It's basically like a list of things that people say about the program.
Okay.
I did it twice.
Oh, okay.
I never graduated.
Oh no.
No, I
was a mentor in the program.
Oh yeah, I would go in and stay because they would put a management variable on me.
And I had a management variable too.
Yeah, that way, because they wanted to move me to a camp, but I wanted to stay in the low because the low was an hour drive for my mom to come see me.
Okay.
And so if they move me to a camp, the closest one's 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. Depends on, it was like Miami or like
Okay.
Tallahassee or something. Like my mom will never make it. She's in a wheelchair. So I kept going in the program. They put them in, but they wouldn't put it on right away. It'd be months. And I'm like, I'd go see my counselor. What is the management variable? They'd be like, no, not yet. And then maybe 6 months in, he came to me one day. He's like, hey, they got it on you. I was like, great. I signed out of the program. And then 3 months later, my new counselor, because they moved you back to the old unit, my new counselor comes in and says, Cox, we're going to move you to, I got to put you in for a camp. No, for a camp. And I was like, no. I said, I got a management variable. It's good for a year. They go, yeah, but we can request it to be taken off. I'm like, you can? Like, I'd always heard it was good for a year. And they're like, yeah, but you're not really supposed to be here. You should be at a camp.
You got to get a shot, man. You got to get a shot and get your points up.
No, even then it wouldn't. I came in with like 2 points.
Oh man.
And by that, and that was because I had a hold from a state charge that they dropped.
Oh wow.
So when I got that dropped, I'm down to like 1 or 0.
Oh wow.
I should be in at a camp. So anyway, so I go back in the program. Like it just happened to be, you had to be out of the program 90 days before you could reapply.
Yep.
And it just at 90, we're going to move you. I'm like, oh, you can't move me. I'm going back in the program.
And that locks you in.
And then I would go back in the program, stayed there again till they put the management variable and drop back off just to stay at the low.
Yeah.
And it was, you're right, that program was a shit. You're right, it is a shit show.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a great program. Like
it is
I
a
thought
good program.
You can't, even if you fake your way, even if you're faking it, you're gonna learn something,
Yeah.
So I always thought it was, and even I learned something.
I pulled a lot from the program.
I thought it was good.
Yeah, I like everybody knew like I was sober and I like was getting ready to like just do better in life. And so they had asked me to be a mentor in the program. And so I took it, I did it, so I ended up, it was kind of funny. I was mentoring the program, so I was running a lot of stuff. I'd be up, running the panel, they have the panel up there and everything. So in the morning meetings and stuff. And so I had gotten to the point where I was, that guy Jocko Willink has a book like Discipline Equals Freedom, which is a pretty solid book just on no excuses and just manning up in the situation. And so I'd be up at this podium reading Discipline Equals Freedom to this unit full of guys, which was kind of funny, which later ended up being a pretty funny story. So I'm in there going through that. I was in RDAP, and just kind of towards the end of it actually I was like 60 days to the house, and I think they were doing something where they came in the unit. They had to come into it had kicked off next door. And so they had came into our unit to lock everybody down. And I think a couple of the guys had like, in RDAP, it's a real shit show. There was guys that doing stuff that you don't normally do. So I think a couple of guys had catcalled a couple of the female deputies. And so the captain had came in, and when we were all locked down, started saying started telling everybody, hey, can't be catcalling the deputies, da-da-da-da-da. And some of the guys start kicking their doors. And somebody yelled out, called the captain. And the captain was like, okay. He's like, all right, cool. He's like, fine. So they leave. We're locked down. We're locked down the rest of the night. The next morning, they come in deep. They pull all of us out of our cells. They take us up to rec, and they're going to trash our unit. So we're up at the unit. We come back. I go upstairs. My cell was up in the corner. So I go up to my cell. My cell was, picked my cell. My cell was, wax floor, clean cell, new paint, had everything painted. And we had these big mirrors where we were at. I don't know if you guys had those big, 3 by 2 foot mirror.
I was in a low. So we had shared everybody, it was a communal bathroom.
Oh, okay.
You don't have,
there's no cells. Yeah.
You were at a medium.
Yeah. Cell living. Yeah. You had dorm living.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in our cell, we had this big mirror above our sink, and I come back into the cell, and there's like dust all over the sink, and then I look down, and I see like big chunks of concrete, like that big, and I was like, whoa. I was like, so I back out of my cell immediately, and I go, and the captain's on the tier, and I've seen the captain. We've had a couple interactions. Like most of the people that are on the yard, they know the kind of program I run. I'm like, hey, captain, I need to take a look at something. Like before I go in here, I'm not taking, any responsibility for chunks of concrete. And he walks in the cell and he goes, oh yeah. He goes, you had a safe behind your wall. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, they're probably going to give you a shot for it, write up. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so he's like, it'll come up. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. So close the door. I sure enough end up getting a couple of shots. I got a shot for the safe, which was I think it might have been a 100 series shot or a 200 series shot. And then in the hole apparently were 2 loose pieces of rebar. And so they wrote those up as a weapons shot. Yeah. And then also as a tool that can be used for an escape. I had like 200 series shots and like a 200 series and one 200 series shot. And the way these shots were written, I was looking at, I could have gotten extra time for that and lost all my, lost the RDAT, everything. And so it was a real shit show. I'm like here by that point in time, I'm like 45 days to the house. Cause everything was like, it was in limbo. Like I knew nothing about it. I'm like, and it's a soft yard anyways. I'm like, I don't need anything to walk this yard, right, man. You know what I mean? You got chomos walking around that you can't touch, all sorts of stuff. I just stayed with my blinders on, you know what I mean? And I'm like, here I am, almost, 30 days to the house, and I'm looking like I could lose all my time here, get extra time. It was crazy. I ended up having a bunch of dudes sign a letter saying that like that's the kind of person that I am. I even had a couple of the counselors do some stuff, and so long story short, it ended up getting kicked out. But man, it was crazy. I was going through it, like didn't want to tell my family that I was like, they're expecting me to come home, and it was like looking like I could have gotten like extra 18 months for that. So it was crazy. So I ended up getting out and went to the halfway house. Remember the first night I get to the halfway house, some guys overdosing in the bathroom. And I'm like, this is a real shit show. Everybody's in the bathroom smoking spice, epi in and out. And find out that 2 weeks prior, some guy overdosed and died in the bathroom. It's just it was worse than inside this halfway house.
I know, or that's what everybody says.
Oh,
I was in the
trash.
halfway. Same thing, the halfway house. What I didn't like about the halfway house is that there was so much overwhelming interaction with the staff, and the staff just seemed to hate you. Like they seemed like they wanted to violate you and send you back to prison. It's like, what?
This one was like the staff would have a lot of interactions, and apparently the staff was bringing in a lot of dope and all sorts of stuff at this place that I was at. So luckily I just followed, like I talked to my case manager, like, what do you need me to do? Because I was trying to get home confinement. And so I did everything I needed to do, like just bam, bam, paperwork, ... I got home confinement within like 3 weeks, which was cool. So got out of there, went to home confinement, started working. I'd get up early, go to the gym at like 2:30. Got a job with the Ironworkers Union because there's a bunch of union guys at the halfway house. So I started wrenching on iron, do that all day long. I'd go do jujitsu in the afternoon, and then I'd go home, eat, and go to sleep. And did that for about 6 months. Started going to this one jujitsu gym. It turned out to be that guy Jocko's gym, a buddy of mine that I know from the San Diego scene. He's also a big jiu-jitsu guy. Seeing him, and me and him started talking, and Jocko ends up walking up to me, and I'm like, excuse me, sir. I was like, I'll let you know, like, a lot of your stuff that you've written has really helped me kind of change my life. And I was actually in federal prison, like reading, discipline equals freedom to this whole unit full of guys. And he was like, oh, that's cool, man. I was like, yeah, badass. So kind of developed a little bit of a relationship with him. He's a pretty well-known guy. He was a SEAL team guy, stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen him on a bunch of podcasts.
Yeah, you know who he is. Yeah, he's actually a pretty good dude. He's actually a pretty good guy. His daughter, I've met his daughter. She teaches like the kids class. Pretty good people. Things just started going really good for me, man. I had when I was in there reading, I read a lot of stuff like on a lot of military guys, and I realized there's like a lot of parallels there. You guys are, even stemming from when they're kids, a lot of guys have had issues when they were kids, whether you want to call it trauma or something like that. There's that issue in childhood, and then guys go that direction, or some guys go in another direction. then an identity kind of gets placed on us for whatever direction we go. You know, the whole identity of being a part of, you know, serving, or then this whole lifestyle that I went down. Then getting locked up, stuff like that. You're spending a lot of time away from family. A lot of guys have issues with addiction. There's the whole transitioning back into society. There's a lot of parallels there. And I started picking up on that stuff. So I was reading a lot of military stuff, and I just kind of, you know, it was the direction I wish I had gone in life. Like, I think that would have been badass to get into like some top tier organization and do some stuff like that. That's what I wish I would have done. So I'm reading all that stuff, and I was thinking, I was like, well, when I get out, it'd be pretty cool if I could find, you know, some military guys to work with or just work out with. And so, get out and, ended up becoming some friends with a buddy of mine who's on the SEAL teams, and, ends up taking me over to their advanced training center. I was doing a combatant class with the SEAL team guys, and things just started going pretty good. I was just making the right choices, and really wanted to meet my wife. So I got on a few dating apps, some Christian dating apps, because that's kind of where it was at for me. And the chicks turned out to be all weirdos and not very Christian-like. And so I was like, great, man, I'm gonna have to meet her in the wild, you know, maybe at church, you know. And my buddy was like, the one guy I first started socializing with, his name's Ray. And so he was on this other dating app. He's like, just try this one. I'm like, okay. So I get on there and I blast it. I'm like, clean, sober, you know, don't call me for a hookup. My faith is number one to me, you know, something. And so I came across this girl, and hers was like faith was number one too, and a bunch of other similarities. So I was like, okay, we started talking. We go on a date or two. We date for about 4 or 6 weeks, and I ended up proposing to her. So we ended up getting married a few months later. Since I come with priors, you know, her family was, her family's like, you know, a little hesitant. They're like, nah, this guy's not really good. You know, I told her on our second date that I had been locked up and everything, and she was solid. She didn't fold. She didn't break, nothing. And so she stood up against her family. So she's like, well, I guess we should probably just elope because my family right now, whatever. I'm like, okay, babe, it sounds good. A couple days later, she's like, hey, you know what? She's like, let's jump out of an airplane and get married. I'm like, okay, babe. And she's like, yeah, we can like say our vows in the airplane, or maybe like when we land. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like you're serious,
yeah.
right? She's like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Had you ever skydive?
Fuck no, man. Okay. So I was like, shit. She's like, you want to, I was like, all right, let's do it.
Is this tandem? Like
yeah, it's our first time. So it's tandem. Yeah. I'm like, all right, babe, let's do it. So she like lines it all up, gets it all set up. And so we, the pastor from my church, who is a pretty cool dude, he's all blasted up. He has had an interesting story himself. He was our officiant. He was on the ground. I was trying to get him to jump. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm like, come jump with us, man. He's like, I'm not doing that. He's like, I'll be on the ground. I was like, bro, come on. And he's like, not doing it. Like, all right. So we get up in the plane, we jump. That shit was badass, bro. Yeah. It was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. She jumps too. We both jump with our cowboy boots on, land, peel my shirt off, put my cowboy hat on, and say our vows right there on this field. It was pretty cool, man.
So they do it not far from here.
Okay.
Yeah. The first time I ever did this, it was, I met a guy, this is when I was like 20, I was maybe 20, 21, and I worked at a Gold's Gym while I was going to school, just like part-time. And this guy came in, and I noticed he had 2 like scars right here, just little, and then I'd seen him and then one day I noticed he had 2 in the back of that. I said, bro, you got scars in the front and the back. He said, oh yeah, I had to wear a halo for like 18 months. I went, for what? He said, I skydive, I jumped out, and the parachute, he explained that his parachute
snapped.
Yeah, well, something went wrong, and then he leaned back with his reserve chute. He said, because you got a reserve. He said, so I was going to be okay. He said, but I leaned back too far. When it opened, it got caught up in the other chute. He said, I should have cut it away.
Yeah.
But he said, by the time it all kind of happened, he said, I didn't really feel like I had enough time. Anyway, so he hit the ground like 100 miles an hour. He said, but it was in like a swampy area, and he's stuck. He didn't bounce. He said, so I was okay, except I did break my spine, 18 months. I was like, wow, bro. I said, but I should never do that again. He goes, oh, no, the day I got it off, I jumped again. Are you serious? So he had told me, like, you should come.
Yeah.
I got a buddy he's got a plane. You don't have to go through the tandem thing. You can just jump with us.
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely, bro. Give me your phone number. So
Let's go.
I never called that dude.
Ah.
But I had told the girl I was dating at the time. And so one day it was my birthday. And I remember my parents had gone to Europe for like 2 weeks. And it was my birthday. And my girlfriend was like, when you come home, come home. What time are you gonna be home? And I was like, okay. She's okay. That's good. That's good. I go, what are we doing? She's like, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I get home. She has me put on my shoes. Make sure you have blue jeans. You have this. We get in the car. We're driving. I'm like, where are we going? And she was skydiving. And my first thought was, I didn't tell my mom goodbye, bro. I mean, like I was that like, oh my God, I didn't kiss my mom, when she left or whatever it was. Like they went, usually I dropped them off at that, and I hadn't seen her before. And I just thought, oh my God. And the whole time I kept thinking, she won't jump. She won't jump. So we get in the plane, and listen, this chick, this is just like, she was a tomboy, just like my wife. And we got up there, and you get numb. I got numb. Like by the time I got up there, I was just numb. Like they're like, all right, step forward, you step forward. Do this, stay here. And I'm just completely numb. And she's going before me. And I thought, she won't go. She's going to stop. And then I'm going to be like, yeah, bro, I'm not going. She's not going. I'm not going to go. And then she gets up, and they roll the roof up, and it's cold. Because you're up so high, and she's got, we're tandem. There's somebody, there's a guy he's got the parachute, by the way. You don't have shit. You're just strapped on. And she leans forward, and I remember thinking, she won't do it. And she looked at me, she goes, and like practically yanked the guy out. And I thought, I have to go. I have to go. Like, I don't care if I die. I can't not go now.
Yeah.
Like, I'll hit the ground. I don't give a fuck, but I can't. This chick will never let me live this down if I don't go. So then I had to go. And I mean, listen, I was fucking the whole way down. I was terrified. You're sitting here like, wasn't it great? No. But keep in mind, I did do it probably 5 or 6 times after that.
Okay.
And when I got out of prison, it's one of the first, and got out of the halfway house, one of the first things I did was I went skydiving. But same thing.
Have you done solo yet, or
no?
All tandem.
And I had done it like 5 times, and you had to do it 5 times and take a class, and you could go solo. Well, it's got to be a guy with you,
right?
But he's not attached to you.
Right, and
he goes down.
Yeah,
right. But by that point, the FBI had shown up, and I had to take off on the run, and so I didn't want to. But I had bigger problems. But yeah, I was numb, completely numb, and you jumped out.
Yeah, it was it was sketchy. Like when the plane, we're in a small Cessna or whatever, so it was like I'm sitting by the door, like one leg is literally hanging out of the airplane, and when we're taking off, and I was like, so we take off, and like as we take off, when we were kind of low, it was kind of sketchy. I'm like the wind's pulling on my leg. I'm like, well, this thing just like pulls me out of the fucking plane, and but once we got up to like altitude and got up pretty high, it wasn't that bad. I'm like, okay, this is a little more peaceful. And
even worse when you're up high. Now I can see how far, and you don't realize you're looking down. The clouds look like they're this.
Yeah.
They look like they're this far off the ground.
Yeah.
Just like we're so far up, the clouds look like they're an inch away from the ground. That's how far, and it's freezing. It's so cold up there.
Yeah, and I just was like, I just knew it was something I was gonna do, and the guy was actually pretty cool that I jumped with. As we were hooking us up, the guy I'm getting hooked up to, he's like, hey, you work out at Warhouse? And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I work out there too. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, man. So it's like, it turned out to be a small community. The guys that own my gym, they all jump. The dude that I was getting hooked up to, he was a SWIC guy, which was like, they're like boat support for the SEAL teams. And so he jumps all the time. And so I'm talking with him. And so I'm hooked up to him, and as we're up in there, we go, and as you have to like scoot towards the edge of the plane. So we like scoot towards the edge. My legs are hanging off, and then they were like, "You need to tuck your chin, and then we'll roll out. He'll push us out." And so like I remember I get to the edge, but for some reason I'm like putting my head back. I'm like, so like I tuck my chin. And this dude, he like literally rolls us out of the plane, like rolls us and has us like tumble and stuff. Cause I guess he knows what he's doing, he's, and so we tumble a little bit. Yeah. And then, pulled it. I mean, tumbled and then we flattened out, and, it was pretty gnarly, you know what I mean? But I think, falling in my dream is way sketchier than skydiving. For some reason, like falling in my dream was way worse than skydiving, hands down. But, yeah, free falling was pretty gnarly, and then once you pulled the chute, it was kind of like at that point, it's pretty easy sailing from that point.
At that point, I just want to get home. I just want to get down. Like they're like, hey, you want to do some loop-de-loop? Absolutely not.
Yeah, they
Don't
had me
do
pull on the
anything
thing
crazy.
and pull on do some loops. Yeah. Yeah, it was nuts, dude. Got married, so it was awesome, man. And just life is just, like at that point in time, I'd almost done what I'm doing now. So I got out of prison. I got out and I had the mindset of wanting to be a service. Like I kind of wanted to give back. Like I wanted to, if there's some kids I can help from going down the road I went down, like that's cool, you know? So I had that mentality, and the first guy that I started socializing with that I mentioned earlier, Ray, the guy told me about the other dating app. He was like, there's some dudes online that are helping coach other guys into like, you know, giving back, helping them out, helping guys get over addiction, like coaching on like fitness, nutrition. Cause I've been about my workout and my nutrition and everything like that. So took a look at it and I was like, you know, I don't know. I was working for the family restaurants. I'd moved up. I'd like managed a location. Then I got into operations, and working with family was difficult. You know, it's like, to me, it's like jobs needed to get done. And it's like, people are taking it personal, and it's like, look, this isn't personal. This is a job. Like this needs to happen. Like this needs to get done, you know? And so that was challenging. And so it's not something I really wanted to have long-term. And so I saw this opportunity and I was like, shit, I'm gonna just do it. So I just literally had jumped online. I hadn't been on any social media when I got out. I wasn't on Facebook or anything. So I started an Instagram page and started putting it out there that I was going to be coaching guys. I had taken on a couple of mentors to help me kind of with the platform, like with the blueprint of how it's set up, you know, the training apps, everything else. And so I just jumped in and started doing it, man. And actually it got off to a pretty good start. Has gone pretty well. I've started working with a bunch of guys. Initially, it was a bunch of guys, blue collar guys with addiction issues, stuff like that. Today, it's now morphed into where I'm working with a lot of active or retired military guys, a lot of first responders. I got like fire department guys on there. I actually got a couple of guys from the LA County Sheriff's Department on the team recently.
Okay.
How funny is that? Talk about coming full circle, man. But it's cool. It's just a program for men that's just like helping to just level up. It's like foundations on like fitness and nutrition, and then it gets into like mindset stuff. And so it's been really cool, man. I've had guys come to me. One guy came to me, Jory, man. He hit me up like in the middle of like a mental breakdown. He was a union worker, makes really good money. He was like, dude, I have no money in my bank account. He's like, I'm on my way to a job. He's like, I just did some lines of powder before I got on the plane and I had a few drinks. He's like, I have this drug and alcohol problem. He's like, I need help. I was like, all right, dude. So I like talked him through it, got him on the program, charged a credit card. The next day he was sober. Now today he's got like 10 months clean and sober. He's got rid of this huge belly that he had. Now he's like jacked. He's ripped. He's got a 6-pack. He's working, killing work, just everything's changed his whole life, man. So it's been pretty cool being able to work and help guys, like see them change their whole life, man. So that's basically what I'm doing now. And it's to where I'm talking to a lot of high up people in the industry, man. I come in contact recently with a company, Core Medical Group. They do a lot of like TRT, HRT stuff. The founder has become a really good friend of mine, and just a lot of doors are opening. I'm working with a veteran organization. They're going to start fundraising money to send for me to funnel guys for the program.
I was gonna say we've interviewed
Taylor Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's how I think we got hooked up was TCAV.
Yeah.
TCAV. Yeah, he reached out to me. He was like, I started doing what I'm doing, and like I've seen TCAV on YouTube and everything. And this dude hits me up. He sends me a DM. I'm like, oh shit. And he's like, yeah, I see what you're doing, man. I love what you're doing, man. He's like, keep it up. I'm like,
he's got the
crazy.
Is it the
the
platinum or gold? Is it gold?
Bottom.
Yeah. I never, and I don't think I ever asked him. There was something that I remember when he left. I thought, man, I never asked what was going on with like the teeth or something. I forget what I didn't ask. He's in Miami, right?
No, he's actually out. He's not far from where I'm at. He's in California.
Oh, okay.
But he's on the move all the time,
I was
though.
gonna say, I thought he was in Miami. I thought he was in Miami because I think he. Oh no, I only thought that because he was connected with Wes Watson. Somehow or another. He had initially started with Wes Watson.
Yeah, I worked with Wes as well. Yeah, yeah, So TCAV reached out to me. A few guys that are big in the military community have reached out to me. A guy, Cody Alford, reached out to me. He's a really good dude. We've become pretty close friends, and it's just kind of climbing up, man. It's just the community and network I have today is just awesome. Like I've started working on some of my expungement, and so I've been getting like character recommendation letters from a lot of these like top tier military organization guys that are highly decorated. I've even gotten a couple letters from guys in 3-letter agencies, just stating of who I am today, what I'm doing, and that I should have my rights restored.
All right.
So it's pretty cool, man. It's so many good things have started happening, man, since I've stopped messing around. It's like life has just gotten a lot. Life is still challenging, but life is really good, man. I just can't say. I mean, there's so many wins that have come my way. It's just, I'm traveling all the time. Business is pretty good. I got my wife to be able to put in her 2 weeks at her job. So now she doesn't have to do that anymore. And so, I mean, there's been so many wins since I've started turning my life around, man. It was like I've won jiu-jitsu tournaments. I mean, there's so many wins, dude. I just can't even like think of all this stuff. But I mean, I guess I'm pretty good. Anything you want me to touch on?
No. I mean, I can't think of anything. I was wondering if you. I only. Just curious, just for my own personal interest, is that if you ever go back into prisons, or have you done any talks in prisons or anything like that?
No, that's actually one of the things. Yeah. So I was talking to Jason Redmond, is now a friend of mine as well, SEAL Team 6 guy. Mm-hmm. The guy had his face blown off. Pretty popular guy, Jason Redmond. He's a friend of mine. I've met him through the stuff that I've been doing with Core Medical Group. And I was talking with him. We were commenting back and forth on Instagram. And he was doing something with a book review from a lady from Fox News. I think her last name was like Campagna or something like that. And so she reached out to me and has gotten me connected with Prison Ministries and their director of California. So I'm going to work on doing that to where I can go and speak at some prisons or juvenile facilities, stuff like that.
Yeah, I always thought about that going. I mean, it'd be cool to go back to Coleman. I'm not sure if that's something they let you do. You go back to federal prison, but I mean, I know that there's the church that we go to, my wife and I. They every time you're there, they talk about how they have this program and they have a prison outreach program where they go into prisons and we sent them like 2 emails saying, hey, we're both former felons, we're married, we go to the church, we'd love to talk to you about participating in the program. Sweet. Never returned an email. Huh. Starting to feel like maybe that's just something you guys are saying, but now that you've got somebody saying, hey, we'd love to be a part of it, they're like, oh, well, we don't have to start doing this. No. I mean, I don't know exactly what it is or what maybe the person running it's not very responsive. But
that's too bad.
Yeah, but I always thought that'd be cool to be able to go in and say,
for sure,
hey, I was in your situation. I did 13 years. I got out. I had nothing. You know, like this is not impossible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because obviously, you get out. Well, you've been out multiple times, but nobody. Well, I don't know what it is like in California, but in Florida, nobody's making it easy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're not making it easy to we want you to be a good person and get a regular job and but you're making it harder and harder and harder for me to do that. And then they complain about recidivism. Oh, because these guys are such bad guys. Well, it also might be that there's really very few, if any, programs to help me.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys too from state prison, a lot of these guys, like they're like, yeah, there's no halfway houses, or the halfway houses are so crowded that you're getting a month or 2 months, or they just, you didn't do enough time, you can't get in the halfway house, or you have a violent charge, they won't take you, or it's like, okay, well, what do I'm getting out with nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, like there's no gate money.
Yeah, it's California's a little bit different, since California's a little more,
liberal, a little more. Yeah.
A little more, whatever you want to call
yeah.
it. So, I mean, there are, but it's not easy. It's difficult there are programs, there are some resources. So, but they don't make it, they don't give you a good blueprint to follow. Like you really have to work for it and really try and, if somebody really wants to make a change, then I think they're capable of doing so, but it's not easy. There are some resources out there. I didn't really get many resources at all.
But you have to rehabilitate yourself.
Absolutely.
Inside prison. You cannot expect them
100%.
to hold your hand. And I mean and I think that's huge, is that you have to make that decision. And if you make that decision, then you can start preparing way before. And I always, you can always tell the idiots that are like in there and they're like, yeah, well, I'm gonna do this when I get out. I'm gonna do it. Well, what are you doing now? Well, I'm gonna start when I get out. You're gonna start when you get out. Well, how I can't go on the internet now? I can't write a letter.
Yeah.
Right. Well, who's going to respond? If you write 40 letters, somebody will respond.
Yeah, I was picking. So when I was in RDAP, one of the DTSs there was a pretty sharp guy. He had he had a master's and all sorts of stuff, and it was like really that he was just there because that's what he wanted to do, and he'd been there for like 20 years. And so I was like, I'm gonna pick this dude's brain, man. And so I'm like, I would talk to him all the time, and I'd find out like, why, like who were the people that didn't come back? Who were the people that came back? Why would they come back, or why wouldn't they come back? And so I got a pretty good, like, thorough blueprint from him. But a lot of it was like you were just talking about, it's having a plan. Guys that don't have a plan were the guys that would come back. Guys that had a plan, guys that were already working on a plan were guys that didn't come back. Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff I got from that guy.
Yeah, there were guys, you could tell the guys that like had somebody go out and buy, like, I knew a guy that his family bought him. His brother had gone to prison, got out, and now he's a welding inspector. He can't weld. He's not a welder. He just inspects. But these guys make like 60, 70, 80 bucks an hour in California, and they're working 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week because, and they take the jobs they want. They feel like, oh, I can't work this, that, I can't. But his brother's working 50, 60 hours a week. He for a year beforehand, he must have read this book. And this was a big book. He must have read it like 4 times. Got out, took the state test, passed the test. Boom. He said a week later, I already got jobs. 2-3 weeks later, he's like, I'm already working, 40, 50 hours a week. And he's making, $180,000 a year. And you're like, it's insane. This guy hit the ground running. But he knew a year prior to that.
Yeah, there's opportunities, man. Like even at the halfway house, like there's guys there that are all working jobs, like especially guys that are like in union jobs. Like I had a little bit of construction experience, and so the one guy that was part of the ironworkers union, I just was talking to him and he was like, yeah, just go over to the ironworkers union. So I just went over there and they had me tie up a couple pieces of rebar, which was not very difficult, and got a job in the ironworkers union. And I was starting off at like $30 an hour plus like $6 an hour vacation pay. Yeah. And then that would move up like after like 90 days or something. So, I mean, there's stuff available, but guys really got to want it, man. They got to want that change. Like if they don't want it.
Well, if you go, what was it? Derek, does he do what? He does plumbing. He's a plumber, right? A buddy of mine that was locked up probably 8 or 9 years at least, got out and he does plumbing. I mean, he does construction stuff too and plumbing, but plumbers,
they make good money
in Florida.
Oh yeah,
it's like $150,000 a year you can make being a plumber. And if you're an assistant, even if most guys, they don't. Oh, I'm going to get this job. I'm not even making $1,000 a week. What the fuck, bro? You were in fucking prison 2 weeks ago or 6 months ago. So fucking what? I lived in a rooming house for 18 months.
Yeah.
Like you can live in a rooming house. Well, I got to get out and I got to help my kids. Your kids are, you've been locked up 8 years. You think 6 more months so that you can become a plumber's helper and take the test and become a plumber? Well, your kids are going to have to sacrifice another year.
Yeah, guys,
it's just excuses.
It's excuses, and that's the whole thing that kind of like it gets me back to like I totally like that's where I like really understood or got like the impression. It's like unless you own something, unless you take responsibility of something, you're not going to change it. Like guys like that, they're stuck in that victim state. They don't take responsibility for any of it. You know what I mean? And they have no change, and they keep doing the same dumb shit.
Haven't you ever heard this one? Like, dang, bro, you let them lock you up for 10 years?
Yeah.
Or, man, those people locked you up. I locked me up.
Absolutely.
I got myself here. And nobody made me commit fraud. Nobody made me do, oh, this dude snitched on me. And you bought the dope from him. You gave him you robbed a bank with him. Like, yeah, of course. He don't want to go to jail. He don't want to do 10 years. He wants to do 5. You can do his 5. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you're the one that fucked up. You shouldn't have given an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely.
So I would see these guys, dang, bro, they gave you all that time. But I was supposed to be in prison. I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
You know, like, you're so fucked up. Society said you can't live with us anymore. You know, but that's because of you. You know, it was definitely me. Like. And I think that it's funny because the moment you start saying that it's my fault, I'm here, that I did this, oh no, the judge or my lawyer sucks, and man, you put yourself in prison. Like, man up, and you did it. You went to prison. You're gonna do some time. You're gonna get out. It's gonna suck. You're gonna live in someone's spare room. You might live in a car. It's gonna suck. Suck it up. You know, go buy yourself some shitty Walmart clothes and dig ditches until you can be a plumber's helper or an electrician's helper and build it. And then you're making 100. Then 3 years from now you can be making $150, $150,000 a year. Doctors make about 130. Lawyers are making 120. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and you don't have any student loan debt.
Yeah, this one's kind of good. My cellmate, I just realized, we still rolling or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my cellmate, I realized he just got locked back up. This kid, he was a country kid from Utah. He had a psychotic episode. He had done a bunch of Adderall, had been up, and ended up like unloading an AR-10 out of 18-wheeler. Got a bunch of time for it. He got shot up by BIA agents because it was on reservation land. Like I saw he was a good kid. So I made him my cellie. He's a good kid. They had him all doped up on a bunch of psych meds. And so we got him to get off the psych meds, came around, he's a good kid. But he has this girl that he had been dating. You know, she was like a prostitute, but she doesn't do that anymore, allegedly. And I'm like, bro, this girl's bad. And like, you got to stay away from this girl. And he just he keeps talking to this girl. And I'm telling him, like, bro, like, you got to stay away from this girl. Like, and he's not having it. He's going to continue his relationship with a girl. When he gets out, he'll continue it. And I'm like, all right, bro. I was like, dude, I bet you $5,000. Like, I bet you $5,000, a serious bet that, like, if you go down this road with this girl, something bad is going to happen. And he was like, okay, bet. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I just get contacted from his mom a few weeks ago saying that now he's back in prison, that there was an incident with this girl. They got into it. Something happened. Cops got called. Now he's got a state case, this domestic case with this girl. She dropped it, but the state picked it up. Now the feds are on top of it as well. The feds are holding him. Now he's going to have a violation with the feds. And I got a message from his mom saying, like, hey, Brad wanted me to tell you that you won the bet. He owes you $5,000. And it's just horrible, man. It's like, guys, I don't understand why guys make just such boneheaded decisions, man. It's like, the biggest thing is just like, once I finally got out of my own way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's pride. Like, every bad decision I've ever made was just based on my pride.
Ego, pride.
100%.
Yeah.
Every
time. Yeah, I've been watching some stuff recently with because I'm in San Diego, and so it's not far from me, where there's a bunch of nonsense going on in California.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies, once this guy got on, has been talking about, he's like, hey, look, man, don't let your ego get involved. If something happens, just get away from the situation. Don't be stupid. Don't do something. You know what I mean? Because it's just, I end up getting in trouble. It's not worth it. So, yeah. But the ego thing is, I think that's the biggest problem with men. I think my brother even had an issue with that. Like, his ego got pretty big. That girl that he was dating that I didn't approve of, she fluffed his ego up so big. Like, that was a huge contributor to what happened with him. She was so bad after he passed, she ends up showing up a couple days later, because she wasn't in town when everything took place. Shows up with a U-Haul, cleans out the whole place, takes everything, stuff that was mine included. And then the place that he was staying at, she took all the appliances. She took like a straight tweaker, bro. Yeah, cleaned out the place, bro. Took the fridge, took all the appliances, everything. And it was like, you know, my family ended up having to cover all the charges for all the appliances and everything. It was just like, she was all bad, bro. She was so bad that like, I would tell my brother like, hey, she's a tweaker. And she'd tell him that she's not. And yet she would be coming to me to buy dope off of me. I'm like, bro, I'm selling her dope. Like,
Right.
Are you going to tell me that she's not like crazy, dude?
Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this. Follow his Instagram. Thank you very much for watching. See ya.